Gather around, freaks. It's Thursday night. And everybody's gathered around the internet once again to ask the question they ask each and every week. And of course, that question is, hey, did you see this one? Lordy, look who's live on the internet once again for another episode of Hey, did you see this one? And this week, I believe that everybody has seen this movie, but I hadn't somehow. In 2002, this movie came out, and everybody
you're the real freak, Jason.
I'm the freak. Yeah. I'm gathered around on the old hot internet tube, and basically I decided, hey, did you see this one, to myself? So we are, of course, in Alien Encounters month, Close Encounters of the Month kind. I don't know. But we have a new guest, a guest that's never been here before. Please put your hands together for Alex. Go!
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Well, welcome to
straight from outer space.
Welcome to the show, straight from the sewers, Master Splinter.
Yeah.
I like to start off the show, though, by doing a new segment. Every week on Monday and Tuesday, I put up images from the poster, and I think that's the first segment that I like to do. It is. And I like to get people to guess. Now, nobody was guessing for the longest time. And then I started to make it easier. Spoilers. But now lots of people come through. So without further ado, please welcome the fan guessing game ?
Congratulations! You have successfully guessed the correct answer, which is the answer you provided. Congratulations!
I actually saw your post and I forgot what movie we were doing this week and I couldn't figure it out. I was like,
Well, I'll start off with my favorite guess. I've selected a guess this week that I enjoyed because it makes perfect sense. And Pod War on Threads said, like Mike starring Little Bow Wow. And then I was like, dude, you didn't even try. And then he put multiple pictures of zooming into the basketball on the net. Or on the poster, and I was like, that's actually pretty funny because if you look at the poster, if you zoomed in, it kind of looks like a basketball. Just running down the list real quick here. Tim Covey got it, friend of the show. He just wants to promote our show for this, so thanks. Noel Kotiff got it again. Listen to Stick Taps and Stitches for the Hockey Doodads and Whatnots podcast. Stu Hayward, once again, got it. He wanted to promote his Pint-Sized Comedy, which is a stand-up comedy sort of walk-up open mic thing in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, every Tuesday at the Celtic Corner, hosted by Stuart Anthony, also known as Old Stewie on Instagram. It's a wacky and wild time with veteran comics and newbies with a special guest pro headliner every week. Aaron Hurdle, friend of the show, he got it again as well. He wanted to say, I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. All those moments will be lost in time like tears in rain. Time to die. I don't know what that's from. I assume it's either
Blade Runner.
Oh, it's Blade Runner?
Blade Runner.
It's from Blade Runner, Jason.
It's very
You're
famously
banned.
from Blade Runner. Have you seen that one?
I have seen it. I saw it in 2020 for the first time, so... I'm new at this. I'm a host. I'm the host with the most. That's why I got Steve as the talent.
The talent, yeah.
Megan Sprengler, who is a new person, she wanted to plug her Mediaverse Unwrapped podcast. I've actually watched a bit of this and it's good. They're going through the MCU and stuff like that. She wanted to say, we're a non-toxic Marvel podcast that discusses everything Marvel without the toxicity that comes with the fandom, which is refreshing.
Cool.
Available on all podcast platforms, and you can check out the videos on YouTube by searching for Mediaverse CU. John Nolet wanted to promote his Instagram, John Digs Music, where he reviews music. My friend Kyle McKenna back in Halifax, also known as the rapper Black Rook, he's got a new album out called Black Rook on Spotify, wherever you get your music. I listened to that. It's awesome. He's actually really good. I'm glad that I'm glad that I can talk about him for a second here because he's great. A friend of mine, Brendan, at Holden Pro, he's a wrestler named Holden Albright. He wanted to say, just create stuff. Online content, visual art, new food dishes, woodworking, knitting, whatever it is you want to make, just make it. And this podcast is sort of born of that very idea. So thanks, Brendan. And Keldon, who is in the chat right now. He's here almost every week. He's very supportive of the team. He didn't have a message or anything, but he did want to, he did get it correct this week. And let me just make sure I'm not forgetting anybody. Nope. And Steve didn't get it. So Steve, you don't get a shout out or a plug this week. Wait, you already got a plug.
He already did his
I made some admirable guesses.
That's true. I think we do that thing.
Some Admiral Akbar guesses.
We do that thing now where we both just like add things to the comments. And I think I said backdoor sleuts 9, which you replied vile, which is good.
It was vile.
It's pretty good. So the first big segment of the show is our brief history. So this is a brief history.
A brief history.
In the brief history segment, we talk about our history with the film. I kind of touched on mine, but I'll go a little bit further. I have made it a tradition to let the guests go first. So, Alex, you finally get to talk after I've ranted and raved for the last 4 minutes.
Yeah. Well, so it came out 2002. I would have been about 14. So that would have made Jason what you were in your early 20s.
We're the same age.
And yeah, so I mean, Shyamalan was kind of on the upswing. Everything was. I'm not going to pretend that I had seen Unbreakable yet. Like I wasn't. I wasn't that hip to it yet. But yeah, it's one of those movies that definitely I saw in theaters, scared the hell out of me. And then when it came to home video, watched it a lot. Like me and my brother watched it a lot back in the day.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's I think most people when this movie came out, it was like big for them in that moment. Steve, how about your brief history?
My brief history. I was still a little bit scared of stuff when this movie came out, so I didn't see it in theaters. I typically didn't go see. I'm a little younger, and it took me a long time. But then I've told the story many times. I watched The Exorcist at a birthday party, and it kind of like it just kind of like removed all reservations I had about horror after that. I'm like, well, I've now seen the scariest movie ever made as advertised on the cover of The Exorcist. But I did see this movie at a birthday party as well. Actually, we had watched it, and then it was like a sleepover. So we're all sleeping in the basement in sleeping bags. And as you guys know, I make noises and voices and all sorts of stuff. So I kind of in the moment perfected the sound that these aliens make in a very dark basement while everyone was trying to sleep. And they didn't like it. They got very mad at me. I freaked out a person so hard that they called their parents and left. But it was good. I think I can still do it. Hold on. Is the mic picking that up?
The mic's not really picking.
It picked up one tiny little bit.
Hold on,
yeah.
let me get closer. There we go.
It sounded kind of like a toothpick falling on the table and not bouncing.
All right, well,
It just
I'll record it.
That's a terrifying
it.
basement movie.
It is, yeah.
I can see that.
There's a whole scene in a basement in this movie, and it's scary. But yeah, that was the first time I'd watched it, and I sort of everyone was a little bit nerve-wracked after they had watched it, trying to fall asleep in this basement. But me making the noise and freaking everyone else out made me feel better and less scared. It's like now they're scared of me. I bet you the aliens in here are also scared of me. Yeah, that's my brief history.
Awesome. Before I get to mine, since mine's going to be pretty short, I wanted to point out some people in the chat. Crandance is here. Crandance is a friend of ours. Crandance, it's interesting because they used an emoji that's actually pansexual pride, but it didn't show up on my phone, so I thought he just wrote out pansexual pride. But all of our pansexual friends, thanks for watching. Also, a great joke from the chat. I have a small pet salamander named Tiny. I call him that because he's minute. Pretty good. Pretty good stuff.
Good.
And also, I Keldon pointed out that it's good that we're doing this because Napoleon comes out next week, and we got Joaquin Phoenix on this joint. As far as my brief history goes, I watched it on Monday, but I was aware of it, and I've always been curious about it. And as we'll get into as we talk about it, I think it's good that I waited, because I remember when this movie came out, people were kind of divided on it. And either people loved it or they were like, oh, it's just another M. Night Shyamalan twist movie. But weirdly enough, this one isn't like a really... like.
I don't remember people being divided on this one.
twist.
I think that, but maybe there were. I don't know. I was also too young. Probably
Yeah,
to,
we were
to give
young.
a shit.
It's not like we were plugged into the zeitgeist.
Yeah, the internet was still new, shiny.
You guys said you were 14 in 2002?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was 16, 17. You're right. I was already 20 years old.
You're on your way out of high school. You're like, I don't give a shit about Shyamalan.
Yeah, I do remember. I was, Alex, if you've listened to the show, you might have listened to me talk about how I was too scared to watch like anything. That's kind of why I didn't start watching movies until 2020, because the threat of anything scary made my daffodil liver tremble and quiver. Whoa, I'm fucking got bars apparently.
Look at that.
Jason's new album.
Yeah, it's dropping.
It's called Science.
Drubel in the chat says M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong, which is correct. Nothing else needs to be said about that. Now we're going to talk about the director a little bit, only so we can use this sound.
All right. Quiet on set. Are we rolling? Okay, let's shoot this piece of Sound. Speed. Action!
So I personally don't have much to add. It's M. Night Shyamalan. We've seen his movies. I recently watched Old. Old was great. People seemed even divided on that. Ever since Devil, I feel like people have said that he's lost his touch. But I liked Old.
I think that's wrong, but also, people are entitled to their opinions.
True.
They're wrong opinions.
So do you guys have anything to add about M. Night Shyamalan? He's not really a director we need to super get into because he is basically one of the biggest.
Well, he goes through like ebbs and flows
directors
and like dips and valleys, peaks and valleys sort of thing, where he'll have a movie that resonates so hard and makes such an impact. And then, he'll make kind of a stinker, and then that stinker will sort of ruminate for so long and take over his name.
Yeah.
There are still people who, like, they're a little bit older people, I would say, like boomers and stuff, who are just like, oh yeah, well, M. Night Shyamalan, he tanked and he never really recovered. I'm like, no, he makes a movie like every 2 years and they're pretty good. Like, we did Cabin in the Woods or not Cabin in the Woods, sorry, A Knock at the Cabin, which was pretty great. And then Old came out recently as well, Jason, you mentioned, and that movie's also pretty great. It's dripping with the M. Night Shyamalan awkward and alien sounding dialogue, but like I personally think that that's part of his charm as a filmmaker.
I agree with that.
As people speak like no humans speak at all in reality.
I think the biggest thing against that he's up against is kind of his own reputation. Like, I feel like it's difficult to. I don't do this too much, but it's like when you're watching his movie, I feel like people aren't even actively watching it all the time. They're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, like it's a Rubik's cube that you're
and
constantly fiddling
like,
with the entire
You just
time.
want to like a lot of people are kind of like watching it and then they want to whisper to their friend. They're like, oh, I think this is what the twist is. You know what I mean? Kind of hunting the twist the whole time.
That's exactly the difference between me watching this and watching Old, because I absolutely was doing that the whole time I was watching Old. Like, I knew what the gimmick was going in because they get right to it. But with this movie, I knew that the twist was the water, and they telegraph it for the whole movie. So I didn't have that in my head. I was just like, what's going to happen next? And I
Yeah.
found that this movie has like, it's more like micro twists. It's just kind of a twisty movie. We'll get into that when we talk about the body of it. But that's what I appreciate, because right around this time he had Unbreakable and he had Sixth Sense, which do have pretty big twists in them comparatively.
Yeah, and it's crazy to me that even after this movie came out, and it did very well, I believe it did quite well. Actually,
I haven't seen Lady in the Water or
yeah.
The Village, so like don't spoil.
Well, though, I mean,
those. I know
I'm
what
not,
the
I
twist
won't,
in The
I
Village
won't,
is.
I won't spoil anything.
Okay.
Relax.
I hate
Keep your
spoilers.
fucking pants on.
I'm
over
freaking.
here. But he still, to this day, holds that sort of title, and that the twists are connected to him so heavily, even though like even after since this movie came out, he hasn't really done mega twisty movies. There are twists in some of them, but a lot of the time they're not super twisty. It's just like, oh, it's a plot point.
I would argue that this is not even, if this wasn't made by him, I wouldn't think that even the ending of this was that big of a twist.
That's what I mean to say, is this movie doesn't really have a twist.
It's more just like a movie.
Yeah, it's more like, they tell you that something's going to happen at the beginning and then it happens at the end. And you're like, oh yeah, that's not a twist. That's just filmmaking, good storytelling.
Yeah.
But he still has that sort of like on his resume, I guess, is like the twist director.
Twist guy, yeah.
I directed Twister. But I mean, another interesting thing about his career is, early on he was getting these big paychecks for these big budgets for his movies, and then when he did start to dip a little bit, he just stopped caring about studio work, and he was like, I'm just gonna, every time I make a movie, take out a mortgage on my house, finance the movie myself, and that way I can just make what I want. And he still does that to this day. He's like, no, I'll just take out another mortgage, and they end up almost always doing pretty well. They never really flop hard.
He's not homeless yet.
Right.
Yeah, even the ones that people hate, like Lady in the Water and The Happening, which I personally, I don't think they're great, but I don't think that they're the dog shit that people constantly say that they are. It's just that they're movies that I probably don't really need to go revisit unless we do them on this show.
I did watch The Happening on like a plane and I hated it, but I do think I need to rewatch that, knowing that the twist is the trees. Sorry if you haven't seen The Happening.
Whoa.
Say hi to your mother for me.
Spoiler alert, it's pretty shit.
It's pretty shit. But I will say about him, his resume is very short for how long he's been around, which is interesting because that means that he doesn't have that many misses. Because if you look at the Unbreakable trilogy, all great. Like old, Knock at the Cabin, great new movies. I don't really remember Devil, but that movie, did he not direct that?
No, he didn't direct that movie.
Okay, so like I'm sorry for bringing that up. And then he's got this run of movies.
I feel like you bring that up every time we do an M. Night Shyamalan movie, and I always say he didn't direct that movie.
Yeah.
But he's got this early run of movies that is like pretty great, and stars wise on IMDb it goes down, and it ends with The Happening, The Last Airbender, and After Earth. But I mean, there's probably things.
I always forget about The Last Airbender and After Earth because I just don't count them.
Checked out.
They just don't really feel like M. Night Shyamalan movies. They feel
The
like
Last Airbender sucked because I'm a huge fan of the original series Avatar: The Last Airbender, and they couldn't call it.
I mean,
Avatar.
I wasn't a big fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and even I thought it sucked.
Yeah,
I was like, I didn't care if it was good or bad, and I went in and was like, I don't know what's going on in this.
It also got hamstringed by not being able to be called Avatar, so you lose even more people because Avatar came out that year as well. So yeah, is Wayward Pines any good? It's got a 7.3. It seems like a cool.
I haven't watched it.
Wayward Pines. I don't know if I saw it.
It seems like a cool horror show. It's based off of something, I believe. Anyway,
I've seen like a trailer. It looks kind of cool, interesting, but I've never watched it. I don't watch a lot of TV.
It's got spooky men.
It's got spooky stuff, and you know how much I love spooky stuff. I don't know. I guess the other interesting things about M. Night Shyamalan is he films practically every single movie in Philadelphia because he just loves Philadelphia so much.
Yeah.
I was watching an interview. Well, he lives there, right? It's like he grew up there and everything. It's his town. But I was watching an interview with him, and he's like, crop circles have appeared all over the world, and everybody knows about crop circles, and I wanted to make a movie that impacts people everywhere. And he went, the UK, India, Philadelphia,
Mexico.
That's just funny.
The
Name
4 places.
massive countries, and then he named Philadelphia.
Give him the old M. Night Shyamalan twist. His name is featured in an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
One thing that people don't really give him a lot of credit for, which I'm sure we'll get into, is that he is pretty funny, and like he does the humor in his movies often does work for me. It's not like laugh out loud, roll on the floor laughing, but it is like clever enough that you chuckle, or at least you register like that was funny. That was a very funny thing.
A lot
that
of
just happened.
wholesome humor.
Yeah, it's never exploitative, and it's never crass, and it's never raunchy. It's always just like, that was a funny, clever thing that character just said, and I liked it.
He's also got that Stephen King eeriness factor, that he can just like have somebody call up on a phone and they'll be saying the thing out loud, and it's gross. The story about the puke, almost getting his mouth puked in.
Oh yeah, and the spitting story.
Like that. He just has these little. It makes you feel weird and gross. Like
I would even say that
has
like,
a lot
he's got
of that.
Yeah, he's got that sort of the magic that like Spielberg has, where like even though there's these characters feel borderline caricature-y and cartoonish, and the stuff they're saying would never come out of anybody's mouth, and it's delivered in a way that you're like, this is so there's something uncanny about the way that everybody's acting and talking, but it still like gives you a perfect idea of who these characters are, and you feel like they're real even though they're acting.
It's believable
unreal.
in the context that they're in.
Exactly.
Absolutely. What do you say we move on to the body of the episode, friends? Because we're
God.
already sort of doing that. Before we do, Keldon in the chat just said that Wayward Pines, he loves it, but it's only 2 seasons. So that means it's a quick watch, in my opinion.
That means it's a show that I would be interested in watching, because I don't have to watch 19 seasons of a TV
seasons,
show.
25 episodes a season.
Yeah.
Oh, here she comes. Here they come. Here it comes.
Ho, 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 ho! Everybody back up, because here comes the body of the episode.
Ooh la la.
Oh, so hot. This is the body of the episode, the time each week when we just talk about the movie now. It's time. Typically, for the last few weeks, we've just been kind of talking. If we do get held up, though, I have the movie basically written out beat for beat. So if we get stuck, I will refer to the notes. My first note, though, is, fuck, I forgot about Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like, oh yeah, Mel Gibson.
You mean like how he became a horrible monster man?
Minutes after this movie came out, he became an anti-Semitic.
It might even have been the same
crazy
year.
person.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done his years of apologies and addressing it and stuff. Does not excuse his behavior, and I don't think that he probably harbors some really off-putting and weird ideas in that mad Australian head of his. But
he's like wildly
he's
anti-Semitic.
a great actor in this movie. 100% proves it, because he is so good in this movie.
He's like wildly anti-Semitic at the best. And at the worst, he's got phone call records of him saying the most atrocious things.
Yes.
And he was one of the original people to be like canceled before like cancel culture was a thing. I remember, but he didn't go away. He just made Passion of the Christ and then Apocalypto.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he like vanished for a little while and made.
And then 3 days later, he rose again.
Yeah, exactly. And then he returned for like one of those weird comedy, like sort of like bro-y comedies where it's like like a comedian and an action star, and their dads show up, and one of their dads is Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
Look who's dad.
And just like your dad, he has some really questionable things to say about minorities.
What happened to you today, Dad? I got pulled over by a cop. You don't want to hear about it.
Oh yeah, and then he was in that.
Going to be on the news later.
He was in that Drive. No, that was Russell Crowe. That was in that Road Rage movie.
I mean, all we really need to say is that we do not agree with anything that Mel Gibson has said or will ever say.
Or
in
Russell
the future.
Crowe, for that matter, because he's problematic too. They're both
true.
Australian.
I mean, I think he's less problematic. He just used to throw phones at people or something, and hot food.
And they'd always come right back.
Yeah.
I think that this movie is sceney enough that we can probably kind of walk through it formulaically from beginning to end. For those of you who haven't seen Signs, it is a movie about a man who is very religious. He goes through some extremely traumatic circumstances that causes him to be stripped of that faith. And he's on a journey looking for signs
I should say.
to restore that faith. Hold on, let me finish the summary of the movie.
Okay.
But it also has to do with the wild circumstances and events that occur that allow him to regain his faith at the end of the movie for it to be restored.
I was only going to
Go
interrupt.
ahead.
I was only going to interrupt you because I forgot about the fact that he was reverend. But as I was watching this movie, I realized I have seen Scary Movie 4, I think it is, with
Like a ton of times, and you're like, oh, is this where all that's from?
well, the thing
The
is
animals are acting crazy. You're like, I swear I remember a dog riding a tractor in this movie.
well, that's the thing. Like one of the, I think it's 4 or 5. Is Charlie Sheen plays this character, and the shell of the movie is Signs. And I remember them lampooning the fact that he was a father, but he was like, he had all these like girls around. And also they redo the scene where she's like trapped against the tree, and they just play it for gags. And that is one of the most gut-wrenching parts of this movie.
Isn't there like the part where like the sheriff, like her hat keeps getting bigger and bigger throughout
Yeah,
the movie?
yeah.
But then when she's explaining to Charlie Sheen that his husband is pinned between the tree, she keeps pulling up like visual aids to like help him. Like she takes a hot dog and like breaks it in half. It's just like,
Yeah. So I should have
this is your wife. Yeah.
I should have said in my brief history that I have seen that. So
No, then you've basically seen
Yeah,
that.
basically seen
Oh,
Signs.
and they did the funny walk, the alien walk, but they did it as like really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just like in Scary Movie 3, the aliens in this movie pee out of their fingers,
Mm-hmm.
Of
the
course.
tips of their fingers.
But to get serious, you were right. This is a movie about a man who loses his faith and he's looking for signs. And then there's a subplot where aliens come, I guess. Just kidding.
These
That's-
circumstances are extreme. The world is being, I guess, scouted for, as that military man would say. It's like it's a scouting mission.
Who's a great character.
He's the weirdest, wildest character in this movie, but he fits right into this town full of oddballs.
So the reason why I brought up the aliens the way that I did is because the opening credits for this were some of the best opening credits I've seen in a film that are just writing. And you know how I feel about that. So this is high praise. They feel like you're watching a 1950s like horror movie, or like
it's like a Hitchcock
people from the world
sort of style.
beyond kind of like intro
Yeah.
with the score and the lettering and the pacing. Like I really enjoyed that.
It's
I
very
thought it was
similar
great-
to the opening of Psycho, where they do all of the legwork via the music and the slow pace of the text, and it's meant to give you this sort of ominous and tension that builds up right until the movie begins, to be like, guess what, guys, this movie is gonna be wild. It's gonna be a wild alien fueled ride. And it cuts straight to this sort of really boring shot of the front yard of their homestead, which I guess is meant to like evoke a sense of calmness. But I really like the opening of this movie a lot, specifically because within, I think, maybe less than 2 minutes, you are presented with all these little visual tidbits that give you a very specific and accurate understanding of who Father Graham Hess is, without having to explain it to you at all. And then throughout the movie, you're given a little bit more here and there to give you more context as to why he is the way that he is. But within that first, sequence, you see drawings of children, you see the silhouette of the cross on the wall, and you know all these little small details about him without the movie having to specifically tell you.
and an
Which
interesting
is just good.
little misdirect. I don't know if you picked up on this, but they're like him, and you find out his name's Merrill, but they're getting ready for their day, and they hear a girl scream out in the field, and he goes running out because he's like, what the hell, like right before they see the actual crop circles, and he yells out, Morgan. And the misdirect, in my opinion, was that you would expect the little girl's name to be Morgan, but it's a boy, and then the little girl's name is Bo. And I thought that's what I mean by this movie has these like micro twists all through it. It's just to like misdirect, get you thinking, because this movie could very easily be directed by somebody and everything could just be like very straightforward and very basic. This story could be told in a very basic way, but since you have the eyes of M. Night Shyamalan writing, directing, and creating this thing, every moment seems to be packed with like a little misdirect, a little subversion, a little moment. And I thought that this was a great way to open it, to like set that up. And then you get this really neat, like when he runs out into the crop circle, the camera pans back and the two dogs run by in front of the screen, which I thought was a really neat shot. And then it just transitions to a crane shot of like, or like I don't even know how they did it back then. It was
a very it looked like a very shaky helicopter.
Yeah, right? Like a helicopter shot, I guess it would have to be, because drones didn't exist in 2002. So, or maybe it was a crane shot.
Yeah, it would have been definitely would have been a.
No, it went
Jason,
too high up.
You're a little janky here.
I'm janky?
Is this my internet or is this your internet?
You're not. He's not janky to me.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so it must be me.
Steve's gonna disappear soon.
Okay. Yeah, it definitely would have been a drone. I watched a little bit of the making of for this, and cranes everywhere. This movie was full of cranes.
Should have been called Cranes.
Hey! Crane circles.
Yeah. Speaking of the crane circles, one thing that I really appreciated in this movie is that he made sure that all of the crop circles were real. He did not want to do a bunch of CGI stuff. In this, time period, CG was still very janky, and you could tell when things were happening. Even in this movie, there's a lot.
Yeah.
I think we can talk about it when we get to the end, but I think they did an admirable job of trying to hide it as much as they could when they did have to use it. But there's a few shots in this movie that did not age well. But M. Night Shyamalan, he basically was inspired by crop circles, obviously, but the original draft for this movie, he wanted to have everything take place in the house only and have almost like this War of the Worlds scenario. Yeah, World of the Wars happening outside, and eventually he came to the realization that that's not like the appropriate way to tell a story, or this specific story, I suppose. But he got all of the crop circles you see on TV, the ones in the field. He made sure that they were all real. And that's something that we would never get anymore. If they're going to make a crop circle movie in 2023, it's going to be purely CGI. And one of the reasons is like, you're not going to be able to find a farmer who's willing to let you crunch down all their corn.
Well, they could take the field from Interstellar.
That's
probably still out there, and just use that.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing about
he sold that corn.
Yeah, they grew this corn for this movie as well. They rented the property from an agricultural college and specifically grew corn because it's one of the hardest crops to break with your bare hands. So they really wanted to reinforce the idea that like humans couldn't have done this. It had to have been done by other means.
Although we do know through living through crop circles, the crop circle hoax for the last 40 years, they basically, and they talk about it a little bit in this movie, they use these big like circular discs that they're able to push down almost like you're stomping down on grass, and hold it down with ropes, and then leave it for a little while, and then that's how they get that effect of it not being broken, and they go around in circles concentrically.
Yeah, I think that the specific reason they chose corn is because it was one of the only things that they knew couldn't be manipulated by that method. That's why they wanted to do it. Like it would be like a wheat field or something, right? When to be using the boards to flatten everything.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Corn is the more cinematic crop, though.
Oh yeah,
because running
nothing
through
like a good cornfield.
Running through corn looks awesome on a screen. I don't know what it is. I think it's the mystery. This is a movie that I'm going to go back and watch to see if there's more alien hints than they actually show. This is a movie that has blink and you miss it alien reveals.
Absolutely. And that was a big deal when it came to video, right? Because you would, like, when I saw it in theaters, it was like, oh, is that an alien? And you kind of freaking out. But then it became very meticulous. Me and my brother, it's like,
Right.
The first
Let's
time you
pause
see him
it,
on the roof, it's like you pause it and you look
Yeah.
at the alien and you're like, oh,
That doesn't look like a Scandinavian woman at all.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that part I looked away for a moment and I heard like the sting, like the music went up, and I looked back and I caught that scene is 1 second long, and I caught it.
Yeah.
And it I was startled, which is crazy for a movie from 2002 to do. Like this movie,
It's really
And Mel
amazing.
Gibson wasn't even on screen.
he wasn't even on screen. I
It's a really that scene in particular is really amazing because they preface it with the conversation with his daughter about his mom, right? Or sorry, not his mom, her mom. And you start to fall into this lull of like sadness about, you know, the relationship between father and daughter and the absence of the mother. And you're feeling bad for both of them, and you're expecting him to tuck her in, give her a kiss, and go to bed. And that sting is just like, it's so important. The music in this movie is so important, but his acting is also just like you see real shock and fear in his eyes.
Yeah. And it's a real emotional and contextual like whiplash.
There's a couple of moments like that in this movie. The dinner scene in particular, where, you know, you have his boiling over anger, and then the eventual sort of sobbing mess that he and his children become. And it's like you're on the brink of tears yourself, and it cuts to almost like a POV of Mel Gibson with his hand just coming and grabbing Meryl and pulling him in. It's like perfect comedic timing. It's like, it's almost cartoonish, and it takes you from this moment of like you're about to like join in the weeping, and then it just hits you with this laugh. And
and it's like sickeningly wholesome.
yeah, it's so good. There's tons of moments like that in this movie, which I think really elevates it for me in terms of like what I would rank it if there was such a ranking system that existed. I don't think there is. Some sort of star system, perhaps. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, just moving along with the movie because I want to get to some more of the beefy stuff. We get the dogs are acting crazy. Houdini is peeing everywhere. The dog is sick. The police officer shows up to aid the call of, you know, Graham calls the cops on the crop circles. They think it's another farm, like a rival farm, which I assume is an issue. I couldn't get it out of my head during this first act that, like, if you have a farm, you're going to have some rival farm just like messing with you all the time, whether it's like,
it's
fun
weird.
I always thought it
like,
was kids. I thought it was like teenagers.
Well, we see one of them later in the army recruiter base. It's the
Michael Showalter.
His name is his last name's Pinkerton. I can't remember his first name. It's like Ziggy Pinkerton and the Wolf.
It's
Wolf Clan
Lionel
Boys.
Pritchard and the Wolfington brothers.
There we go. Yeah. Lionel Richie and the Pinkerton brothers.
One note that I've seen this movie a lot of times, and I guess I tried to watch it looking for new perspectives or new things to pick up on. And one of them is when Morgan is taking Houdini outside. Graham says, "Oh, take him to Dr. Whatever."
Mm-hmm.
And Morgan says, "Oh, he doesn't treat animals," which I guess is just like the town doctor. And Graham says, "I don't know what to do." And then later, much later in the movie, when he ends up going to Ray's house, Ray has a sign on his mailbox that says veterinarian.
Oh.
So I guess
like,
even though the dog was sick, and he was like, "Oh, just take him to the human doctor," right? And then and I think it's kind of maybe
I never noticed that
such
before.
a small town that they don't even have a vet.
Because that's one of those micro reveal twist things where even when
it's like he didn't want his son to go face the man who murdered his mother.
Go bring your pissing dog to the guy that, you know what I mean?
That scissored your mom in half.
Yeah, timbered your mom.
But this is around the part...
also maybe out of respect for him, right? Like making him face
maybe,
the children too.
Yeah,
would
for
be,
sure. I mean, I'm sure it's just kind of...
It's a unique situation. It's a unique,
sure.
He fell asleep at the wheel. He wasn't drunk. She was just out on a walk. It was dark. It wasn't like how can you be like truly angry at somebody who it was just an accident? They just happened to be driving the car.
Yeah, I think that's he understands that as well, right? He's like, he is angry, but he knows that his anger is...
That's
he
why
has to put it somewhere.
That's why he loses faith. Like, that's why he can't be angry at a person, so he's angry at God, essentially.
Yeah.
That's how I perceived it anyway.
For sure. And I think that, if somebody who is a reverend, obviously these people are probably thinking about faith a lot more than, the average human being.
Yeah, I stubbed my toe and I yelled, "God damn it!" So I think it's a little different for the Hess family.
Well, Jason, you know me. I have chronically bad luck, as you've called it before. So, like, if I was looking for signs of anything, it's like micro things happen to me all the time where I'm like, God damn it. Like, Jason, we went to the movies the other day.
Couldn't
I go
believe
to
it.
buy a drink out of the vending machine, and it's just like, we were talking about like how weird shit happens to me all the time. And then just like the drink just didn't come out. And I was like, okay, this is my life.
How do we harness this? How do we?
Well, by the logic and mechanics of this movie, we will eventually be invaded by something, and you'll have the exact blood sugar needed to make it through because that one drink didn't fall
Yeah.
Your
like
throat,
8 years before.
Your throat will close at just the right time and block your lungs from the ancient poison.
Well, I certainly hope that's true.
Yeah, it'll all pay off one day. Don't worry. All these horrible things.
We get sort of an interesting hint at the water having something to do with something. Bo, the little girl, played by what's her face, Little Miss Sunshine,
Abigail
Breslin.
Abigail Breslin.
Thank you. I just needed to hit that first name and I got it. She's got a weird aversion to water where, and also they kind of hint
She's an
later
alien
in the movie. Well, they kind of hint later in the movie that she might have some sort of like an ESP ability, like a really low level telekinesis,
like a shining power or something.
Yeah, like a reality power. Like, you know how in a movie that's pretty grounded, somebody will have like something that they never explain.
Yeah.
This is that. She's got something.
I dreamed that.
Yeah. And kind of like the Nightmare on Elm Street movies before they really go paranormal with it. But
before the Dream Master shows up,
they try to feed the dog some water, and she's like, the water's contaminated, and the dog barks at it too. So it's like
amoebas.
Yeah, I don't want to drink my brother's
amoebas are in it.
She walks around the house taking a sip of water and then putting it down and leaves her cups of water. This house has 30,000 cups apparently. And I want to ask you guys something. I have like it's not quite a Mandela effect, but I seem to remember there being a scene in this movie where like they figure out that the water does the thing, and then there's cups of water all over the house. That might have.
Well, they're not all over the house, but there's a lot. And during the fight at the end, Merle is like smashing.
Yeah, he
cups
wails
of water.
on a couple of them.
Okay,
Yeah.
they might have just
like
shot a
spraying
scene.
water at the guy.
They might have shot a part for the trailer that just like,
Maybe.
honed in on that a little bit. That's because I've only ever seen the trailer really. Right. But the police officer there talks. She talks about the animals are on high alert. They're peeing everywhere. Houdini's peeing everywhere. And she keeps calling him father. And he's like, don't call me father. We don't really know why yet, though. Because we don't really have that, like, insight. At this
We don't
point.
know that the mother is dead yet.
Yeah. But he also says, like, don't call me father because I can't hear my children calling me. Which really hit me as, like, a double... Like, the kids literally stop yelling for him outside. But also, it's like he lost his faith. So, like, the children of God... he can't hear them anymore. Like I took that as like a double sort of meaning, a sort of subversion, and sort of like M. Night Shyamalan sort of hinting at things to come a little bit.
Yeah, he does that a lot.
Yeah,
where he likes to have at least two meanings to things, including the title of the movie.
He writes his fucking dialogue so like robotic and weird, and they say weird shit. But I think that's so great. It adds to the dynamic. Like I want to hear.
Once we get to the town, it's crazy. Like every single person is crazy. It's so funny.
Yeah.
But even before, does this happen before? I can't. Does the roof part happen before they go to town or after? I can't remember.
I'm not sure.
Consult the almanac.
Yeah. I'm still at the like. This is
all right. Yeah. So we'll get to it. We'll get
to
it. I'll remember what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Morgan ends up killing the dog in self-defense because it starts freaking out, and that's when he can't hear the kids anymore because the dog, like, they have a moment.
Yeah. He stabs Houdini like he's a caveman killing a mammoth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Bo is up on the the place at like just frowny face, which I thought was like a really weird moment. I made a note here that's like M. Night has created such an off feeling and vibe to this
It's because
moment.
there's a serious lack of music throughout this entire sequence of events.
It's like
where
haunting but normal. It's like
you're just getting the sizzle
Yeah.
of the barbecue, you're getting the sound of the wind through the corn, but you don't hear any birds, you don't hear any insects. It's like this eerie silence. And then they're also kind of feeding you drip feeding you little bits of information as well. You're getting hints at the fact that like he doesn't like when people even refer to him as father anymore. This is also where you are like, oh, so he was a priest. And then you've got Morgan saying like, Dad's gonna burn these again. Like, so his dad was just cooking and left to go show the sheriff the crop circles, which also just shows that he's like obviously been absent-minded since his wife got killed.
Yeah.
Precapitated. What do you call it when you
Yeah.
get cut in half?
Darth Maul.
Dissected. Yeah, Darth
Dissected.
Maul. Yeah. We
So-
call it the Phantom Menacing.
Just side note. When in 2002, did you know that this was a Culkin?
No, I didn't know until I watched it this week.
Because-
and during the opening credits, it was like
Rory Culkin.
Rory Culkin. I was like, really?
Rory Culkin, it seems like, from my point of view, he did this movie, which I didn't know. I
Yeah.
was like, why does this fucking kid sound exactly like Macaulay Culkin watching it on Monday? And then I'm
Right.
like, oh yeah, Rory Culkin.
He looks like him as well.
This is the third Culkin brother behind Macaulay and Kieran. And he looks exactly like a young Macaulay, and he talks like
Yeah.
him. And
Yeah.
Rory Culkin is like back acting now. Like I don't know if he went away, but I know he's been in some stuff recently. And Kieran Culkin just acted all the way through. He was Fuller in Home Alone, and he's been in sitcoms and movies. He's on Succession. He's
Succession,
incredible on
famously now, yeah,
Succession.
for sure.
Incredible on that show. And Rory Culkin, just like a clone of Macaulay in this movie. And
Well, there's even shots in this movie that are very reminiscent of Home Alone. Like when he's purchasing the book, it gives
Yeah,
you sort of
he's very
it evokes
precocious.
the sort of imagery of him like
Yep.
at the grocery store,
Or when he sees the alien and he goes,
yeah. It is like I've known this I think since the movie came out, just because like me and my nerdy film friends when we were kids were just like, that's Macaulay Culkin's brother, did you know? kind of thing.
yeah.
But more so now,
And I
because-
said, no, Steve, go away.
but
definitively no.
when I watched it this week, it's not that I forgot. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, I forgot that he's. But it was more so that I have recently rewatched the Home Alone movies, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's crazy that all you have to do is shoot this kid from a high angle over a counter, and you're immediately like transported to a different movie with a different Culkin in it.
His eyes, nose, and mouth have that. Culkin
And he's good too,
look.
man. Like
he's a great actor. Yeah,
I think it also helps that everybody in this movie has crazy, weird wooden dialogue, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, a lot of the acting is just, okay, now stare there and don't move whatever you do.
Yeah, and try
Yeah.
and say this really awkward line as unnaturally as possible.
like old had that. I found that in Don't Knock at the Cabin was a little bit more, loosey goose for the acting, but old definitely.
Yeah, but
had
even that movie still has.
It's got
some
Batista
moments
basically
as well.
playing Drax as a normal person. Drax the Destroyer is like a normal dude.
I think it's hard. I don't know if I agree with that. I think it's just the fact that he is a giant wrestler, man. In any other movie,
Yeah.
you're
But-
going to think about Drax.
But watching Old, I thought that this movie and Old were very similar. They're both like M. Night Shyamalan, like horror, but they're both very like people saying weird shit in a weird cadence at the wrong time.
Yeah.
right.
Bo comes. So now it's nighttime. Bo comes to Graham. He's only known as father for like most of this movie. In fact, I'm the person that always keeps track of names on this show, and I heard Meryl calls him Graham like once, like an hour and a half into the movie, or like an hour into the movie, and I was like, oh, so that's he's supposed to be father. I think that was the intention. Until you literally have to call him by name at some point. But she comes in a very wooden M. Night Shyamalan way, says, there's a monster outside my window. Can I have a glass of water? And then, of course, it's a little kid, so you
Yeah.
just don't think anything of it, and he gets the water. And this is at the part where we sort of get the inkling that the mom might be dead. And I wrote, why is Bo so creepy?
I hope you got that in.
Yeah.
They're talking to her when she's.
Why do you talk to mom when she's not here? Because she's dead.
Right. I don't know. Maybe they broke up and he's a fucking.
Yeah, I guess that could be.
Now she's
And
in heaven.
also, he is known as Graham. The officer, what's her name? Paskey calls him Graham.
Oh, she calls him Graham.
When
Okay.
before she leaves, because he's like, "Don't call me father," and then she kind of like almost gives it to him in a way that it's like almost sasses him a bit. She's like, "Okay, well, I'll go." She's like, "I'm gonna go now, Graham or whatever." Graham
turns around quickly.
Graham.
But then we get a glimpse of something on the roof.
And this is, I mean, the when the officer first comes in and she's talking about the spitting and stuff, there is a little bit of humor there. And Merle waking up also has a bit of humor to it, but this is when the humor really starts
The
to
funniest
to
part of the
peak in this
movie is this part, because they think it's the other farm boys.
Yeah,
and Meryl's trying to
Lionel
teach
Richie and the Wolfgang
Yeah,
Puff boys.
yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever.
Wolfgang Puff.
She must spit on all the skateboards or whatever.
The funniest part about this is the juxtaposition between Meryl, who's like a grown-up, peaked in high school guy who's, you know, out drinking and probably partying to a degree, or he's a normal person. Graham is a recently thrown down the what's the thing that the priests wear on their neck? He's thrown down the cuff.
Collar, I think.
Yeah. He's thrown down. I thought it had a
What
name.
everyone wears around their neck.
He threw down. Thanks. He threw down the collar. He renounced religion, but he doesn't know how to swear or be angry because he's a very chill dude. He's very like, you know, holy, pious.
It doesn't sound natural when I curse.
Yeah.
Well, you don't mean it. It's
So
just
they-
gotta
I'm
scare 'em.
insane with anger.
I'm insane with anger. They go out and he's like trying to tell them like we have to go out there and scare them away by swearing and cursing and acting crazy.
I like how he
I don't know
keeps
how to
saying
do
like,
that.
explain that to me more, please.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
I don't understand what you mean.
So his version of that is, I'm insane with anger. I'm out of my mind. And
I'm out of my mind.
I'm out of my mind.
No,
And I think he says something. He says shit. He says like, I'm gonna kick the shit.
No,
out
he's
of
gonna
you.
kick
No,
your-
it's
kick
going to
your
be an
ass.
ass whooping or
yeah,
whatever.
it's gonna be an asshole thing. Yeah.
And then he does a very funny like, I swore, and Meryl's like, great job.
I heard, yeah. I cursed, yeah.
It's good, yeah.
One thing this movie did huge for me, huge back in the day was it really humanized Joaquin Phoenix for me after Gladiator. Like,
Yeah.
because
Oh,
I'd only
right,
seen
yeah.
him in Gladiator. In that, he's like, it may as well be a Terminator. Like,
Right.
and that's my own. That I know he was in stuff before and after and whatever, but I had seen Gladiator, and Joaquin Phoenix scared the shit out of me because I'm
he
like,
was intimidating in that movie for
And
sure.
I don't
he's-
remember him being so young in Gladiator, but he's definitely
Yeah.
younger than he is in this. But in this, he's playing like probably 20 at the
But
oldest.
he's also in like full period royal gear,
True,
and they
yeah.
also do a time jump in that movie, so I think they age him up a little bit to during the Maximus Aurelius or whatever his name is.
But I've never
Yeah.
seen Joaquin Phoenix like this is the most normal I think he's ever acted in a movie.
Yeah.
Because like 3 years later he does I'm Still Here, which is almost killed his career, even though it's a masterpiece of a movie because it's like Borat before Borat almost. You know,
Oh,
never
when he
saw
went,
it.
was that? I think that was quite a bit later, was it not?
I thought it was in like 2005.
It was in 2010.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
So he was in a bunch of shit in between.
Yeah.
I'm usually good at years, but that movie affected me in a way that clearly I thought that was more of his career. But
No, he was and then even after that it didn't really do anything to his career. Like he made Her 3 years after that, and
Yeah.
he's been working pretty consistently ever since.
wow, that's crazy. I thought that I'm Still Here was an older movie, and Her, you know, that's 2013 then I guess.
was
Yeah.
like his comeback or resurgence kind of.
Yeah,
That was his like he did a couple things in between those two, but that's kind of the big one.
But
yeah.
Her is really good. Like Her is a great like
Yeah,
kind of
Her is good.
indie movie vibe.
But I also
about
think
a
after I'm
modern-
Still Here, it was revealed fairly loosely and quickly after that he's like, I was just fucking with everybody.
Yeah.
I'm not actually crazy.
So it's
Like,
a
Yeah,
Borat-
I saw him on Letterman or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
leading up to it, and yeah, like he really sold it.
It's a
Yeah.
Borat after Borat. Then,
If anything,
Yeah.
he was more crazy when he was making the Joker.
Yeah,
yeah, but the Joker's its own. It's the weirdest thing about the Joker guy because I don't like that movie.
Me neither.
And Joaquin Phoenix is such a good actor, and it's the wrong. I'm hoping that this sequel, they redo it. I like the idea of Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn.
Joker 2.
We'll see what
Lost in New York.
happens. I don't know. The first one
Joker
was just
2
a big...
Electric Boogaloo.
All I could think about when I watched the Joker was Gotham really needs some universal health care. That's all all I could think about. If this was set in Toronto, this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. So they think it's the other firm, and there was a great shot of, I think Meryl saw the alien at this time because he's reacting to something on the roof that they don't show. I think they do this a lot in the movie where the actors see the aliens pretty clearly and they just won't believe that they're seeing it. In fact,
I don't know if that's true, but like it could be, but I feel like we're meant to see them just as much because like everyone is always uncertain of what they've seen, right? Like even when Mel Gibson
walking into the corn,
even when Mel Gibson fully sees one and chops his fingers off, when he's describing it to his family, he even says, I think I found one in a pantry, and I'm not 100% sure that I did, but I'm pretty sure I did.
Well, that's
but
what
I can't
I mean,
be certain
right?
that I am correct in this right now. And also, I chopped its fingers off. Maybe. I don't know. I ran out of there right afterwards.
But it jumps down. You hear all of this, which I thought was a great sound font to like hear.
The sound design in this movie is amazing.
Sound design in this movie is really good because you hear everything that's happening, and the alien like they catch a glimpse of it early. They go outside to scare people away, and you know Meryl, he's tracking it whether he sees it or not. Like you said, you hear it jump off the other side of the roof. Like you hear dun 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 dun, poof, of it like hitting the ground and then runs into the corn, and you see the corn. In fact, there was one part where Meryl throws a rock into the corn. I was just like, even if he went inside and the rock was thrown back, I thought that would be a good little moment.
Oh, you wanted your ET moment?
I really did. But that's probably paying homage to ET, in fact. Like, just because you're expecting it, clearly.
Or reaction,
he does kind of echo Spielberg a lot in this movie and in most of his movies. There was a time where people thought that he was going to be the new Steven Spielberg. Like, I remember there was a magazine cover from 2001 or something. I think it was during the filming of this movie, actually, where it was like the new Spielberg ? Yeah, and he was like had his hands on his hips, and there was like a cornfield behind him. I think I even might have bought the magazine because I was like, I need to know more about this M. Night Shyamalan because he's cool.
He's cool as fuck. He made a dead people be a not a dead people. He's a ghost all along.
Well, I mean, I saw Unbreakable in theater, and I thought it was the coolest shit I'd ever seen in my life. I was like, this guy just blew my goddamn mind.
You can make a superhero movie that's grounded in reality. They'll never do this again.
Yeah.
I think like every superhero movie before that was sort of like, I mean, not grounded in reality, but it felt like the budgetarily and like the way that they made movies, they couldn't make them sort of over the top.
Yeah, like you couldn't get a Spider-Man movie in 1996 or a Superman movie. They couldn't have made that. I don't think they ever could have made that Nick Cage Superman movie and people take it seriously.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like I think it was always destined to be garbage.
Yeah, I guess Burton kind of changed the way people thought about it.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah. And then Spider-Man even kind of feels like a Burton-y sort of world. The Danny Elfman music doesn't help to try and separate itself from Batman, but even the sort of campiness of it is there, right?
Sam Raimi and Tim Burton have a lot in common when it
They've
comes
got
to
it's like their
choices.
Yeah, they have the same sort of DNA running through their veins in terms of like visual style.
They love gross visuals without it being inherently gross. I think M. Night Shyamalan has a lot of that, like very stylistic. I guess you wouldn't know unless somebody told you for some of his movies that it's M. Night Shyamalan, but once you know, you're like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense that it's him. The next day, the sheriff comes back. Bo does this is where Bo is doing the weird thing where she's a bit of a hypochondriac about the water. She thinks something wrong with it. That's what she mentions, the amoebas. Like, that
The
cup
amoebas.
has my brother's amoebas in it, and that's
Okay, this one has dust, this one has a hair, and this one has my brother's amoebas in
my
it.
brother
and I
took
don't
a
wanna
sip.
drink it.
It's got his amoebas. And she leaves the glasses of water all over. They argue a bit about how Meryl knows it's a man. What the fuck does that mean?
That means
It's
because they're
a-
talking. He's like, "Oh no, there's no girl I know can
Oh yeah,
outrun me and jump on the roof and all that." That was also that was a good exchange with the Scandinavian.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Yeah, she's like, they've got these
They didn't have
Scandinavian
her
women in the
cigarettes
Olympics
or whatever.
Yeah.
yeah. She's also like, there was this truck stop where this 6 foot tall woman came to town and she disappeared without a trace. So she could have come to your
Could've
family.
been
She
her.
probably came to your corn farm.
And they're like,
Climbed
why?
on your roof. Yeah.
Why would that happen?
It's a funny exchange. It's just, I think that she's just trying to not make a big deal out of something, but she's also trying to like tie up loose ends while also get to some sort of conclusion. But it is ultimately a comedic moment that's meant to sort of show Meryl's insecurities as well as the dynamic between the sheriff and like how she deals with stuff. But it's also just funny, right? Like at the end of the day, it's just a funny gag where she's like, I don't know. I've seen some women in the Olympics and they run pretty dang fast. And it's like, well, she jumped 9 feet in the air. Oh yeah, these Scandinavian
They got,
women,
high,
they
they
can
got,
jump
that, they
it.
got
It's
women's
pretty
high jump
crazy.
too.
And the father is like, I know that you're trying to make a point, but I have no fucking idea what the point
But
is. That you're trying to make.
barring Scandinavian Olympians, what are we working with here?
Yeah, exactly.
During this during this bit, does Bo say there's only food under the couch? And what does that mean?
That's
she
just having
comes
children,
and asks
I
for the
think.
remote is.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's only like Cheetos under there or whatever.
Yeah, she's their only food.
But then she
didn't
says,
clean any of it up.
Then she says, this is another little misdirect that got me that I was confused about. 'Cause she's very clearly watching Dexter's Laboratory, I think.
Yeah.
And she says now there's the same channel on every TV, and my head didn't click into that, like, oh, the news is on every channel,
Emergency
and they
broadcast.
only have like 3 channels probably. I thought the aliens were somehow making it so Dexter's Laboratory was on 30 different channels. Because I'm stupid.
Oh,
I'm a dummy. Don't watch movies.
That'd be a
with
good
me.
strategy, though.
It would be. Why is this incredible?
No one will know.
There's
what's
some
going on.
newscasters screaming into a mic, "Water kills them! Water kills them!" And it's just Dexter, like, Dee
Yeah, Dee.
Why do you come into my laboratory? And I wrote, she's so bizarre. But it is the breaking news of the crop circles all over the world that
What?
I didn't
including
know.
India and Mexico.
Also Philadelphia.
And also Philadelphia. I didn't know that about this movie. I didn't know that there was an alien invasion, like a large-scale alien invasion happening in this thing. I thought this was all contained in the farm.
Okay.
And after watching Mars Attacks a couple weeks ago, this felt like a serious Mars Attacks moment.
Right. But it also does contain itself really to the farm for the most part. That you do get the one scene where they go to town, and then the other one scene where Mel Gibson goes to the veterinarian's house, to M. Night Shyamalan's house.
I thought it was I thought the whole invasion happened to the farm. Like I thought one spaceship came to their farm. They have to do
yeah.
So I'm glad.
But
I
mean, I
spoiled
feel
on
like
that.
and I feel like the excitement and like the humor and the story is all kind of hinged on the fact that the household itself is sort of divided on what to do and what's going on, and eventually they unify. And that would be difficult to accomplish if it was just the one house without this like sort of outside influence, right? Like the book, the news broadcasts, and Merle slowly sort of like at first he doesn't want to believe what's in front of him, and fairly quickly he jumps on board like real fast, which is also good because it shows that
I'll be back in 1
he's
sec.
not stupid, but he's very quick to
Well, his big turning
to
point
jump
was
to conclusions.
the birthday party, the video of the birthday party, the Mexican birthday party, where they see that's when he
But
gets
he's
the
all-
tinfoil hat.
Yeah, that's when he gets the hat, but he's already been obsessing.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
he puts the TV and he like watches it all night in the
But
closet.
it's also
or whatever,
and
right?
it's also funny because he's like, "Oh, I brought the TV in here because the kids have been watching it all day," but he's in there obviously
watching it all day.
watching it even longer.
There's also a funny point later where like Mel Gibson is like, so in that book, does it say what happens if there is an alien invasion? And then he goes into great detail about all the options of what humanity would be faced with, and then like this long comedic shot of Joaquin Phoenix being like, I'm sorry, what book are you guys talking about?
yeah. Like he just doesn't want to interrupt.
Yeah, he's just listening, and he's clearly getting real nervous about the situation. I think this is about the time where they go to town, right after the discussion at the table.
It is the time during the movie where I questioned. They makes them go to town to get their mind off things. This is where I questioned what the relationship between Meryl and Graham is. I thought, I mean, they do look very similar to each other on purpose because they're brothers. But
yes,
I thought that he was the wife's brother.
Okay.
Which would have also
well,
made
the police officer tells him
they do mention
it was really nice of you to move in.
Yeah, she says it's nice.
It was nice of you to move in with your brother.
Yeah.
Does she say that? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know she says it's nice that you moved in. I didn't know if she outlined that it was definitely.
I believe she says your brother. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was really nice of you. I can see how if you missed that one little tidbit, it would be like, whose brother are you?
Yeah, and I guess I already knew the whole time, so it didn't.
Yeah,
I wasn't like trying to figure out who he was as well.
I thought
because I had seen this one.
At this point, he was the eldest son, but the ages don't really make sense, so I was still confused. I remember being like,
that also you're also right about that because
they do
Mel
seem
Gibson
like
is
they could be
an
like,
oldish man.
Yeah.
Yeah, they seem like they could be like 15 years apart, which I don't know. In the olden days before we were
back
born,
in the early 2000s.
Yeah. But like, I mean to say, like when Mel Gibson was born, for example, like I guess like in the 50s or 60s or however old he is.
Yeah.
It was more common for people to have a shitload of kids, and it was also more common for people to have kids with like large gaps between
stagger them pretty heavily. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which doesn't really happen anymore because people can't afford children.
No.
So we just don't have them.
Or like, it's not even like I could afford to have children, but we're just sort of like, we like to have freedom and money, and I'm a adult.
Or even just nobody, even if people are consciously having kids, they're not doing it. Like Mel Gibson is the kid you have when you're 18 or 19. And then you get pregnant again when you're in your 30s or 40s, and you have Joaquin Phoenix, right?
That's what I was.
Exactly.
That's kind of what my line of thought. Like, yeah, he could have had, or from another marriage or whatever.
Yeah.
The bookstore owner is a weirdo. Oh yeah, the bookstore so he goes in and asks for. Wait,
a book on extraterrestrials.
Was this the thing where there was like
they all split up, so we get
guy who's like putting his own books in the store, or is that from something else? Oh, that was in Loki.
No, she said that.
That was on Loki.
She said the book came in.
Yeah.
She said, "Oh, the book came in by mistake. It must have been for the big city folk or whatever."
Yeah,
like they only had a book on aliens because it was
an
sent
accident
to them erroneously.
Right.
Yeah, and we kept it for the city folk. Yeah. I think it's over there. The funniest part about this sequence is that there is the owner of the bookstore or whatever, this man, and he could just be the husband, or we don't even know if they're married. I don't know.
Women can own bookstores too. You know.
Yeah, right.
I'm not saying. Well,
there are six. There's a 6 foot book salesman.
Hey, everybody, calm down. The couple who own the bookstore, the man of the two is clearly crazy because he is completely denying the fact that this is real, and he's calling it a hoax or a conspiracy, while also believing in an equally, if not more, ridiculous conspiracy of that they're only doing this to sell soda to people.
Sorry. Okay, my note didn't make a lot of sense, and also there's a thing in Loki season 2 where. Did you get to that part, Steve? Anyway,
I haven't watched the last 2 episodes.
It's not a spoiler. It's kind of a spoiler.
Everything is a spoiler according to you. So why don't you just leave it, let it lie?
Anyway, what happened there in that last minute is I got confused by the word soda, and I thought that there was a character that came in and did the thing that I alluded to. But yes, you're right. It's very funny that this owner, it's like they're just trying to sell sodas.
Yeah,
That
I've
makes-
counted
eight
12.
soda, yeah, or whatever soda commercials.
I've
Since
seen
this
12
started.
soda.
And he yells from the
commercials
other
today.
room, 13.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we get a little tiny snippet of a soda commercial, which is funny because it's just the commercial is just soda, soda, soda,
Yeah,
soda,
yeah.
soda, soda.
And meanwhile, Mel goes over to the pharmacy to get Morgan's asthma
Which is also funny
medication.
because
And
like
she,
everybody else,
she's like a teen girl. She's
Yeah,
like,
Tracy Abernathy.
yeah, she's been sinning. She's been swearing. She tries to corner the Reverend into doing to tell him all her sins.
A confession.
A
Yeah.
confession. He says, "I don't really do that anymore. I'm kind of not. I'm not a man of the cloth anymore." When I was trying to say collar earlier, I was trying to say cloth. But basically, she just starts rattling off everything she's ever done.
also very funny
He
because
said,
she
"Shit."
yeah, and bastards. And then she basically confirms that anything can be a curse as long as
Yeah.
it's in the right context. But the best part about it is she jumps from 37
Like
curses
71.
to 71
With
from
douchebag.
just the word douchebag. Yeah.
I like that she keeps track of how many times she says douchebag.
Well, she's
While
worried
still
about
using
getting
it.
into heaven, man.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm going to do that from now on. I'm going to
Yeah.
track how many.
I don't want any of you to be alone with Tracy Abernath ever again.
Ever
Do you
again.
understand me?
They're
Which
like,
also,
okay.
which also sort of alludes to the fact that maybe she started talking about some real weird shit after
Yeah.
after the camera turned off.
For sure.
And then, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say we move on after that point, but let's not forget the most important trip during the trip to town,
Yeah,
which is Meryl going to the recruitment
the
office.
trip to Crazy Town.
in a new segment I like to call characters that Steve could have played with whatever Cunningham, the recruiter dude.
The recruiter, yeah, and he's just like it's like
Here's here's the sting for the segment.
Hello there.
that. We get this shot of like Merle looking at a recruitment poster, and then it just sort of like pans over his shoulder as you hear some guy like, it's not what we think. It's something much more sinister. And just like this guy is like, he's spouting off the most ridiculous sci-fi B-movie nonsense. They're sending people down to check things out and do some scouting, and then in the moment of this like crazy rant, he has a moment of realization that like, holy moly, aren't you that guy who
Aren't you
hit
Meryl
that
Hess?
you hit that 500-foot dinger and set the world record or some shit?
Yeah. Why aren't you in the big leagues getting your feet licked by beautiful women?
Beautiful women. Yeah. So
then
not only is he like a creepy weirdo who says off-putting things about aliens, he's also a creepy weirdo who likes his feet getting licked by beautiful women.
Yeah, that's the height of success for him.
He also
What I love about that interaction in that character is, can you imagine if you're put yourself in the actual context of the movie. You are military minded. You're like, okay, aliens are here. They are doing reconnaissance. They are staging an assault. But then you just see someone who's like kind of a local celebrity from a vague time ago, and suddenly you don't care about the aliens at all, and you're just like, oh my god, it's Meryl.
Holy
You know what I
shit.
mean? Like, you know what I mean?
Another person who lives in my town.
You've
Yeah,
got 3
exactly,
records.
yeah.
Why aren't you a big baseball star? He also mentions probing during this, but he doesn't say like
Yeah,
the aliens.
yeah,
He's like,
yeah.
you're probing
Yeah,
around, and I was like, that's
Probing.
an interesting way to like fit that
There was a
word
moment
into the movie.
today. There's a moment today where I considered looking up that monologue and performing it for you guys, but it's like I don't know if I should do the whole thing. Also, the movie does confirm when the record was set. It was 1997. When he goes to grab the bat, it says 507 feet set in
So it was
1997.
5 years ago, yeah.
Yeah.
So so Meryl's probably he was probably 16 or 17 when he.
I don't know how old
that
he's supposed to
record.
be.
Well, it was like
Yeah,
junior,
yeah, he's very
junior league or little league,
ambiguous.
wasn't it?
No, it was minor league, so
Minor-
you can still
okay.
be.
So he's
you're
maybe
not
like 25.
necessarily in high school.
Right. So he might be like.
Yeah, you're not
23,
necessarily in high
25.
school. I mean, we can speculate all freaking day long. I don't know what
speculating.
minor. Is there a cutoff? Is there a cutoff for your age in the minor
Hey Google,
leagues?
how old are you in minor league?
Sorry, I don't understand.
She doesn't understand.
Sorry, I don't know anything about fucking sports.
Yeah,
No, stop. Hey Google, stop. Yeah, but he's got the 5 records, and that's when he's like, you know, he asks him why he doesn't, and then what's the guy's name? Pinsky Jones, played by Michael.
His name is the president from Wet Hot American Summer.
Michael
Cunningham.
Showalter.
Yeah.
He turns around, and he's like, you know why? Because he also has the most strikeouts. And as Meryl's leaving, he says, "I just thought you should swing at them. Or it felt wrong not to
it
swing."
Felt wrong.
It felt wrong not to swing.
Which is one of those M. Night Shyamalan, like, that has a bigger meaning.
Yeah,
than-
it's like a watch the second time line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that hit me hard for some reason. I don't know why these, like, innocuous moments hit me so hard in this movie, but it's just because
It was
I'm
a
like,
sign.
Yeah, it was a sign. That's a sign. And I'm like, M. Night, I know what you're doing. I know I see you, buddy. That's right. Michael Showalter. Morgan reminds me of Macaulay Culkin. I just wrote that.
I wonder why.
So when they first get to town, Graham is like, okay, you guys go do your things in town. This whole sequence, while it's happening, I didn't realize that this was just an excuse to build these characters out a little bit. But while you're watching it, you're kind of like, oh, they're just off doing their little things. But it's a great retrospect scene, because when they all meet back up at the pizza place, where Graham says at the start of it, meet me at the pizza place at 5 o'clock or whatever.
Or 15 minutes.
Or
in
15
or
minutes.
whatever.
And they all get there. And then I start having that moment of, like, reflection on all of the weird little adventures they just went on. And it kind of led me to feel like I want to see, like, more of these people's lives in this small town, because everybody is so bizarre. They're like Simpsons.
A lot of characters.
They're like Simpsons characters or something.
Yeah, they're very cartoonish, and it's fun.
And even the officer, she's the same way. It's just you kind of get her on the farm, so it's like it's just like, oh, she's kind of an oddball, and then you go to the town and you realize it's because she's from Oddball Town.
Yeah.
Another
She's the sheriff of Oddball.
Yeah. Another thing I liked about the day trip was the whole intention of going there was so that they don't watch TV and focus so much on the aliens and get out of the house. And then they go in there and it's a small town and
everyone's talking about it.
And the only person who gets away from it is Mel Gibson, and he's stuck with Tracy Abernathy
doing the thing that he tried to leave 6 months ago.
So he gets stuck doing a confessional, and then the kids get bombarded at the bookstore, and Joaquin gets the probing talk. You know what I mean? So it didn't really. It did the complete opposite of the intention.
I got the sense that Meryl was trying to, like, look into joining the military because he was sick of being in this podunk town, but at the same time, with the threat of an alien invasion, because they all play it like they all outwardly play it like they don't believe it, but they all clearly believe it.
Yeah,
which is sort of the crux of the characterization of these people.
I think that the bookstore guy does not believe.
No,
he believes it's a soda.
He's a flat earther who believes that it's a soda conspiracy. But you know, like the father who renounced God, he doesn't want to believe that there's an alien invasion coming. But you know, there are signs. You know, the people coming from the stars and religion are very, like, intertwined. And Meryl he's at the end of his rope at this point, I feel like, and he doesn't want to believe it, but he's the first person to get, like, the most obsessed with it. He gets red-eyed and, like, won't stop watching the TV, even though Morgan is very, like, obsessed with it in, like, a nerdy way. You know, he's
clinical about it.
Yeah, and he's very clinical about it. He's very, like, he's very rational about all of it. He's, like, very factual. And I don't know what the fuck's going on with Bo. She's a creep.
Yeah, she's a small girl. Yeah, she's just a small girl.
She's creepy.
Who recently lost her mom, and aliens are invading. Let's cut her a little slack.
Okay.
One thing about
reason.
Meryl,
Alex.
One thing about Meryl is, and if you think about it in the context of his life, like in the snippets we see, he's very endearing, very likable, but he is a has-been, you know, like very.
He feels like a failure.
Oh, I could have been, you know what I mean, a baseball player and all this. But his only claim to fame is hitting a ball really hard. But it's only because he just Babe Ruths it and just basically swung as hard as he could every time.
Every time.
And anyone probably could have done that if they had the right luck. And he just works at a gas station in
he definitely needs a
town.
little bit more from what his life is, right?
But he's also super he's like even when they're recanting the story of chasing the alien around the house, he's like, I don't know, I'm pretty fast, you know what I mean, and all this. And I feel like when he's looking at the recruitment flyer, it's kind of like he's like, oh yeah, it's almost kind of in like, I think in his brain what he's not saying, he's always thinking is like, oh yeah, I could take these aliens, you know what I mean?
Right,
And it's kind of like even though he hasn't really accomplished anything at all, in his mind he's still like, oh, I'm in my prime, I'm, you know what I mean, I could go and kick some alien ass kind of thing.
That's good.
He's
Yeah.
fighting the fight already.
Yeah,
That's good
like he's already
insight.
imagining going to war with aliens,
Yeah.
Him and his
and
bat.
obviously being a big part of it and succeeding.
I don't know if you guys are huge Earthbound fans. We're on Twitch. I got to bring it back to video games at least once.
Yeah.
But he kind of reminds me of a grown-up version of like Ness. If like Ness wasn't
Yeah.
called to action until he was in his 20s, especially at the end when he's like fighting the alien and just doing smash attacks at him. That's just a little thing that I picked up on. And he's from a podunk town. Anyway, we get to the point where they're all at the pizza place, and it like after all that comedy, now we get
the moment where we all cheer because M. Night Shyamalan pops on the screen and we go,
Yay!
yay!
And then
there he is.
Then we realize
I don't
based
like
on-
that.
You don't like it?
I don't like self-insertion that much.
He does.
I
him
think
and-
it's become
And
a
you can clip
staple. Yeah, I think it's a staple of his movies, and I get excited when I see him. Like when I saw him in Cabin of the Woods and he was like selling air fryers on TV, I was just like, yay, there he is. He's on an infomercial.
See, yeah, I don't mind that. I don't mind that or like a Stan Lee cameo, but it's like
I wish he had kept
Yeah,
up.
he is a pivotal character.
He
in
eats
this movie.
chicken wings in all 3 of the Unbreakable movies, and I wish he would have kept that up.
He doesn't eat chicken wings in all 3 of them.
Or well, at least Split and
In Unbreakable, he's like a
and Mr.
drug
Glass.
dealer who
Right.
like is trying to
Wanna buy
sneak
some
drugs
wings?
into it.
at least Split and Glass. When he showed up in Old, I was like, why isn't he eating chicken wings? Thought that was his thing now.
He just has,
That's
he
his
just
whole
has
thing.
barbecue sauce.
He's the
on his
twist
lips.
and chicken wing guy.
Yeah.
But it is a moment where you're like, oh, there he is, and then you realize through context clues that he
Is that
fucking
him?
killed the wife. He did
But
it.
he also is not that bad of an actor either. So
No, he's not at all.
He's pretty good.
I don't really find it all that distracting when he does have some business to do. And I think that his role in this movie was performed well enough that, and this is like before people knew that it was him, right? Like
Yeah.
before this, we've got Unbreakable, which you don't even really see his face in that. And then we had
Oh
The
yeah,
Sixth
he's
Sense, which
in
I can't even
stadium,
remember.
right?
Yeah, I can't even remember what his cameo is.
I don't
in
remember
The
if
Sixth
he's
Sense.
in. I don't remember it.
But this one, he gives himself like a full character
Role. Yeah.
Yeah,
A named character.
a named character who is the whole reason for this family's current mental state,
Yeah.
which is running his wife over with a car and pinning her against a tree.
In house.
And he catches the whole family is staring at him. The only one who doesn't know who he is Bo, and she's like, "What's going on?" And Morgan clearly doesn't realize that he hasn't seen him before, I guess, because he says, "Is that him?" Right?
Mel
And,
Gibson
Merle
probably
says
gave him
yes.
a really colorful description of him. And he just saw the only brown guy in town get into a car. He'd be like, that must be him.
I know what you meant by that.
I remember him from the stories.
Yeah. And you get the sense that Mel Gibson is still not, obviously not come to terms with it, but he's also very much not come to terms with the fact that this is the man who did it. And it's obvious in this tension that they haven't spoken to each other yet. From both of them. You get it from M. Night Shyamalan and Mel Gibson, where they meet eyes and it's like, it's awkward as
M.
heck.
Night
And
Shyamalan kind of mad dogs him a little bit too.
Yeah.
a
When
little
he's
bit,
getting in
yeah.
the truck, he's just like, You want to be next? You know what I mean? Like,
Revs his engine.
don't take any late night walks there, Father.
I couldn't help but feel.
He pretends to fall asleep at the wheel and drives into the pieces.
He's getting into his truck with a clear bag full of NyQuil.
Oh my god.
Oh man, I couldn't help but feel though that they did all that comic relief stuff to have this moment feel
even more heavy. Yeah,
yeah,
and it works
wrench,
though.
wrench your heart a bit more.
I went
Yeah.
loud while I was watching the movie, so it worked.
Yeah.
They go back to the farm. There was a moment earlier where the sheriff shows up and Morgan's playing with the walkie-talkie, and she's kind of like, one day you'll work up to the walkie-talkie, but for now you get to use the old baby monitor. And when they get back, the baby monitor starts reacting, and they think that it might be the aliens. And then Meryl starts to describe.
Also, by the way, that's not what happens at all. I just want to be clear.
What do you mean?
She tells him about baby monitors. She doesn't give him a baby monitor.
No, she says
she says you can use a baby monitor. Then you get it.
Yeah.
But then it's off screen. He goes and digs it out of the basement or whatever, and he's like, I went down to the basement.
Jason didn't say that she comes to him with like a mahogany box and opens it.
Yeah,
And
she
it's a
has
baby
like a bunch
monitor.
of. It's
No,
like
that's
a
not
mahogany
like
you know what I
baby
mean?
monitor.
It's like a training knife. Until
I know,
it gets
but
this
there's
real
an
thing.
important detail, which is that he finds it in the basement, and that's the reason that he's
Right.
able to navigate the basement later on.
Oh, okay.
I just want to.
Sorry.
Just wanted to be clear.
Keep me honest.
I want to make sure that
Steve keeps me honest. But my point here is that Meryl describes incels 15 years before incels are a thing.
Yeah. Before the term was created. Yeah.
He basically says
That's such a cute line.
he basically says that they're nerds who study Greek mythology and they love making up secret societies, which is kind of what a red pill thing is, because
So that other nerds who also didn't have girlfriends can join the secret societies.
Yeah. Which I loved. In 2002, that's incredible foresight, because I feel like there were nerdy people acting like that.
Yeah,
then.
that's the Marvel community now, like you were talking about in the thank yous moment. That's what Marvel fans have become. They just gatekeepers.
Yeah.
You can't like this.
Yeah, like I saw the Marvels. The Marvels was fine. It was funny. It was a family comedy. Don't take it so fucking seriously that the X-Men and Fantastic Four didn't show up and fight each other in the middle of the movie. Okay?
Is that what you expected to happen?
Not
Did
me.
somebody expect that to happen? Okay.
I'm being hyperbolic, of course, but I feel like every movie that comes out, like we got.
I was happy that it just didn't have anything to do with any of the other fucking shit that's going on in the universe.
We got one little connection. I'm not going to spoil it for the people who haven't seen it, but there's one little tie-in about halfway through the movie that's a cool like nod to the other movies, right? Like. They mentioned...
Yeah, but what I mean to say is it didn't have a big jerk off fest where we have to talk about Kang showing up later.
Well, Kang's done. That's over. Yeah. Jonathan Majors is that's.
It just has a villain and they fight the villain and the movie's over.
Yeah.
There you go. You don't need to have a bunch of.
I went to the
setup
theater
for
with
some
my
other
pals.
stuff.
We had a good time.
You don't have to watch 18 hours of other things to.
Exactly.
Also
I had
that.
not seen Miss Marvel, and I got exactly what I needed to from the movie about who she is and who
Which
her
is
family
also
is. And I was
cool.
like, I understand this family. I don't need to watch the show.
Yeah. But they do get a signal that sounds like the clicky noise that you were trying to do earlier.
Yeah, I'm sad I can't get it to work. I guess I thought it was louder.
And then at this point, I was like, this movie kind of reminds me a little bit of Nope. Kind of has a similar kind of.
Because it's on a farm and there's
Because Mel
aliens
Gibson's
involved.
Let that
Oh,
one breathe a
God.
little bit, because that's layered. No, I guess not just because it's on a farm, but it's got a similar sort of storytelling. It's not it's twisty. You know, Jordan Peele might be the new M. Night Shyamalan because he doesn't.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comparison. They're both kind of Hitchcocky in the way that they have these very high concept ideas, and a lot of the time they are suspenseful and full of, horror in quotations for M. Night Shyamalan. He does venture down that road quite a bit, but
and stylized.
They're very stylized, and they're very. I would say that Jordan Peele is a little bit. He's harnessing the reality of people's reactions a little bit more, and the dialogue feels a lot more natural in those movies to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And then when the heightened things are going on, that's when people start to like speak very odd and strangely, and you're like, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah, it might
Whereas
come
M. Night
from-
Shyamalan movies are just always bug nuts, weirdo.
Jordan Peele's
people
like his history
talking about getting their toes licked
is-
by beautiful women.
he wrote sketches for the majority of his career and then transitioned into writing films and is doing horror in a unique way from a different with a different voice. M. Night Shyamalan has he's got a very specific voice and a very specific vision that's different. But I thought that these two movies, like, they had similar beats, they had similar messages almost. Maybe not messages so much. Maybe.
Yeah,
who
I
knows?
get what you're saying.
Yeah. At any rate, that night the dog is freaking out. Isabel, you're gonna feel
Again.
very silly when this is all make believe. Almost talking to himself as well. I believe that was Graham that said that.
Yeah, it's so. Again, it's one of those moments where you're like, I talk to myself sometimes, and I talk to my pets and stuff, obviously, but I don't think I've ever said to an animal like, "You're gonna feel really silly when when you find out that this is make believe." So
That's
many
true.
things that
That's-
to an animal.
I do that. I do that
conceptually-
to my cats.
But that's why I pointed out that it's like he was talking to himself because
Yeah, for
this
sure
is when
he
he's going. We get a great like sequence of him like getting a old timey flashlight. Well, I guess old timey for the 80s, not the really old timey flashlight later in the movie. He gets a flashlight, one of the big ones with the big block battery. He goes into the cornfield. This is where I want to go watch the movie again. I don't know, Alex, you've seen this movie a bunch of times.
Yep.
Steve as well. Is there anything else than what is obvious here?
No, I don't think so. I think it's
Like,
specifically
there's one
done that.
alien and that's it in this whole moment.
It's specifically meant to, you're not supposed to see anything, so they're not going to sneak stuff in there for you to see. And the one thing that they want you to see is the thing they show you because it's
Right.
creepy as heck. Especially like the fact that it's a leg is so weird. Like it's like, and it's a strange looking leg, and it's obviously there's no clothing or armor or anything, and it's like the way the leg is positioned is almost like it's wearing like a high heel. Like it's like, in like The Nightmare Before Christmas when the leg is coming through and
Yeah.
it's almost like a lady's leg.
There was also we forgot to. I don't know if we were still talking. Were we in the town when I left the room for a second? Anyway, the army guy, he was mentioning that like the way these aliens have started to appear was more like them doing reconnaissance.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
they're scouting or whatever.
Yeah.
So they're
We
not
talked about that,
actually
yeah.
trying to do any damage. They're just looking around. They sent their scouts essentially, and that's what this whole sequence kind of felt like too. Like he caught a glimpse of one of the scouts who was living in the corn or in a spaceship just right above the corn, and he's chasing him in, and the alien's just there doing reconnaissance, because when the aliens actually start fucking shit up, they're pretty intense. Like they're pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But at
And
this point,
they are not quick to fear. They're not,
yeah.
they don't stand down.
They're not stupid also, which
Yeah.
when the one that's caught in the pantry might be like kind of like with how bees are all drones, but some of them are a little bit smarter because they have to do a higher function. This might be a situation with these where the scouts are drones and they are dumb. They can't like figure out basic like doors and stuff.
How to use a door? Yeah.
But then later, the aliens are literally like tricking them by knocking on the door and trying to find alternate ways
for
in,
sure.
right? Like, so this moment was like a cool little, but it also this whole sequence plays as like the horror, like one of the scariest parts of the movie. Because when you see that glimpse of the leg, I rewound it a couple times to like desensitize myself to it.
Yeah.
Because the first time you're like, ugh. And then you were like, is it really that bad? And then the second time I was like, ugh, again. And it's really
it's
really
it's a
interesting.
weird, it's
Yeah.
creepy. It's definitely
Alien.
off-putting. It's an alien's leg.
I wrote
And
down,
I also,
I'm just gonna say, I wrote down at this moment, I better not get jump scared.
I don't
well,
think there
I
are any
remember
jumpies.
thinking like when he's tearing ass through there, just how fast they can be, right? Like we've seen how physically capable, at least agile they are. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, it has, if the stakes feel real.
Yeah. Yeah, the fact that they can like leap off of a roof and sprint to a cornfield without you even seeing them also, it indicates that they're extremely fast as well, right? And I mean, Merle also kind of confirms that with his "I'm fast. I'm the fastest one in this room.
Yeah.
I just got some new shoes. You want to
I
see
can
how
race
fast I can
anyone.
run in
Yeah.
them?"
And Graham yells to the alien at this point because he still thinks it's not real. He thinks it's a hoax. He yells to them like, "You aren't gonna get famous. I'm not gonna tell the police or the news." And that's him. He still doesn't really realize the severity of the situation. And I wrote this part as tense because there's even a part where he like falls over and the flashlight goes out and he does that thing from like horror games where he taps on the flashlight, and I was like, oh yeah, this is fucked.
And part of that is probably also just trying to convince himself that nothing, to try to maintain the narrative in his own head that it's not aliens.
Yeah.
And it's almost kind of like, that instinct to intentionally scare yourself to like wash it away. Like he walks out into the middle of the field in the circle and is like yelling at an alien.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, when you go to take a leak after a scary movie and you open the shower curtain to look to make sure that there isn't a murderer in the shower.
Yeah.
Or you like that
punch
false bravado, you know what I mean?
Well, I go camping every year, and that literally happens when it's midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, and there's half the people that are camping are asleep. It's like me and Mike Frank still up playing some card game, and you go off into the horrible forest to like take a leak, and then your eyes focus to like the darkness. And you just think you see every monster, and so you like walk back with purpose to try to be like, I'll fight everything.
Yeah. Or you're taking a leak and you just say, yeah, I know you're out there. Yeah, you kill me if you want.
Exactly. Or you're literally on like mushrooms and you're like,
the story I told at the beginning where I'm in a room full of scared, boys. Yeah. And then I decide that I'm going to scare them more to make myself feel less scared.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you kind of took the side of the aliens.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
An alien.
Yeah, you would be the first one. You'd be like an alien sympathizer right off the bat.
Like, they're not that bad, guys.
Yeah.
They just want our blood.
I'll show you how to open the pantry. You know what I mean? Like, right off the bat.
I think that this house has a coal chute.
Yeah, Steve's out there banging on the door.
I'll bang on the door and you go around to the coal chute.
You go to the coal chute. There's the load coal in here. So this is at the point, though, when he runs back into the house and he's like, okay, we can turn on the TV now and see what's going on because I just saw some shit. And they do. And it's a full-on invasion. There's like, I think they show Mexico and there's just like 60 lights over top of Mexico.
Yeah, and, which is like now in the year between 2021 and 2023 we've seen videos like this like actually in real life, and they cover it for an afternoon and then everybody doesn't give a shit anymore because they're like, yeah, I don't care if the aliens are there, let them come.
Yeah, let them be there.
Yeah,
they're too afraid of us, you aliens.
Yeah, there is a meta aspect. So I attempted to watch this movie in a certain lens, because this is a movie that, although I've seen it a lot, I haven't seen it in a long time. And I kind of forgot about seeing actually seeing on the news the UFOs and kind of that more concrete evidence. And I guess have you heard the people postulating or the theories that they're not actually aliens, that they're demons? Like there's I've
heard that before, yes.
And I guess it's like, oh well, like people think they're aliens, but they never there's nothing to really concretely say that they're aliens, and it's like they're demons and he's like a priest and I was like, okay, I'm kind of going to try to watch it in that lens. And then it gets to the point where they're watching the news and they see all the UFOs and they're like, and the craft entered Mexican airspace, and I'm like, what the hell are these people talking? How the hell do you think that these might not?
That's like when one person says something and then a lot of people run with it, and then they force themselves to believe things that are like
it's like some cool contrarian and even before I watched it, I Googled something to the effect of like, what does M. Night Shyamalan say about this? And he says something along the lines of like, oh, it's like it, you know what I mean? People see things they can't explain, and everyone that just jumps and expects that it's aliens, and they put this label alien and all this. I'm like, but then you put UFOs in the movie,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, like,
But that even could be him hearing that theory,
Yeah.
right? And like obviously people will lean into religious imagery because the movie is about a man who was a priest and has lost his faith, so they're going to be able to find things when they're looking for it.
Yeah.
But I mean, also let people have their wild theories, I guess. Like,
I guess
who
so,
am
yeah.
who am I to say you're wrong? But like,
and that's how I tried to
I
watch it
also agree
until I
with
saw
you, though.
UFOs, and then I was like, I don't think
Yeah.
demons have UFOs.
Also, Crandance in the chat would like to know what movie we're talking about.
Oh, we're talking about The Rundown,
Yeah,
starring
starring
Dwayne The Rock Johnson and
the
Sean
movie
William
you were
Scott.
supposed to come on and watch with us a couple months ago. I think just my theory is that in our reality, the UFOs are a myriad of things, ranging from weather to classified technology. To,
you're talking about in reality, like our reality.
yeah, what all these like
Oh, God.
aliens
Okay.
are. I don't think that beings from another galaxy or dimension have ever been here, and if they have been, I think they're smart enough not to fucking show themselves.
Yeah.
You know, a prime directive always comes to my mind when I think about alien invasions, and it's like, if they're smart enough to get here, I don't think they're just going to immediately be like, hey guys, we're here, unless they're going to Mars attacks us.
Yeah. The other thing is, though, you think about it, and do you send your smartest guys first?
No, you send a monkey or a dog. Remember Russia
Yeah.
sent a dog to space?
Yeah, Laika. Laika
Or-
was the dog's name.
Or if it's Fire in the Sky, you send like barbarians,
Yeah.
which is kind of what these dudes,
No, those
guys.
guys were garbage men.
garbage boys.
They were perverted truck drivers.
They wanted, yeah,
Let's get a human.
they were exiled
Yeah.
from their colony for being perverts, so they go pervert.
Yeah,
type.
yeah. Put on some clothes, goddammit.
Well, at the end of this movie as well, they say that they were taking people, right? So that
Yeah.
you're never going to figure out why. It's just like, and I guess that also plays into the demon theory where it's like, this is the rapture or whatever, and they're taking
Yeah.
people to hell. But
That's a good.
I've heard
that's
that
a good
theory before,
theory. I like
and
that
I've-
you watched through that lens.
Yeah.
Well,
and I tried to make it through, but then the UFOs, and there's some other stuff. When we get to the appropriate parts, I'll also point out some very damning pro alien anti demon points that I kind of got myself riled up about the demon people. But
Well, this is
Yeah.
earlier in the movie, Morgan says like, this is going to change the science books, and then the man on the television at this
Yeah,
point even
yeah.
says it.
everything they wrote in science books is about to change. And then
Yeah.
the news broadcaster says the exact same line like 3 seconds later, and he goes,
Yeah.
I told you.
it even
See?
says it like a kid. Like it's such the like
Grammatically, it's like
yeah,
not
it's
right.
so
Yeah.
clunky, like
Yeah.
and weird.
Well, he says it exactly the way that Morgan said it like an
Yeah,
hour
for
ago.
sure.
Speaking of,
That's when they said the name of the movie in the movie.
it happens twice. It happens, actually, it might happen 3 times. But at 42:02 and 43:19, they say signs. So he says signs. He says sign, talking about people breaking into the 2 groups when he's telling the story about signs from God or the lucky ones who feel like just happy to be here, and the people who fall into the category of like they're scared and that life is worthless. But then at 43:19, he actually says signs, and then towards the end of the movie, at 1 hour 35 minutes and 35 seconds, they say signs again. So that's when they said the name of the movie in the movie.
They said a whole bunch. Yeah, it's when he's like dying or whatever, and he's like, it's a sign.
That's when they said the name
It's
of
a
the
signs.
movie in the movie.
It's an M. Night Shyamalan signs.
We've gone on a bad streak of them not saying the name of the movie in the movie, and when they
I would call it a good streak because I don't like when it happens.
But when they show the sign, like when they show the symbols on the ground at the beginning of the movie, I was like, "Oh, is this it?" So I wrote a timestamp for that, but we didn't have to talk about that.
I wrote every time they saw a street sign. I was like, there's a sign, there's
Yeah.
a sign, there's a sign. That storefront is a
started
sign.
singing the song by I think like the Yardbirds or whatever. Sign everywhere, sign.
So we kind of skipped over the part where he's reading the book, right? Or is that is that later?
Well, they go back to the book, and that's when we see the picture, the perfectly drawn picture of the house.
Oh, yeah.
Of their
Like,
house,
the
yeah.
Of
alien-
their house with them dead on the ground.
That's a sign.
Yeah, that is quite the sign. And I feel like a responsible parent might have like lingered
Yeah,
a
maybe
bit shorter on that page.
Let's turn the
and just
page.
be like everybody sees the page, everyone sees the picture, everyone thinks, wow, that looks exactly like our house, and an alien is burning it, and there are crisp bodies of like a parent and children on the ground.
Yeah.
And that's the appropriate time to be like, oh, what else is in this book?
Yeah.
But instead he draws attention. He says, that kind of looks like our house, doesn't it? You know,
Yeah, he may as well have like then pointed at the bodies and been like, and that looks like
that
us.
looks like Bo. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's like the next thing, because before that is Merrill tells the story about a miracle he experienced,
The
which
barf.
was he
Oh,
was
yeah, the barf.
getting with a girl at a party. They were drunk. He had gum in his mouth. He turned his head to get rid of the gum, and she puked all over herself. And he's like, I'm a miracle man. She almost puked in my mouth. That would have scarred me for life.
Yeah, I would have been traumatized for the rest of my existence.
then
I
he's like-
feel like
and
the
then-
bar for miracles for Merrill is there. It's pretty low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Low
Graham is like,
but it is almost making out with that girl is again one of the few highlights that he's ever had in his life.
but then
That's true,
Graham
yeah.
hits him with, do you know what your mother's last words were?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
right after that. And they
Yeah.
were swing away, which would like they posit that she was in her final moments, some synapses fired off, and she was like brought to one of his games, which was kind of sweet but dark and weird after he tells that puke story.
His delivery is like, yeah, well, she said this, and it's a chemical thing, and it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? He's very shut downish about the idea of signs of something greater, where it's just like at the time he's like, I think he tried to find meaning in it, and then in the context of that conversation he's like, but it's all just random noise that means nothing.
Well, I recognized in that moment the point of their juxtaposition between a miracle person or a lucky person and a fear person was, without saying it, just telling that story about those final synapses, is he's a fear man. Graham is a fear man to the bone. He feared God, and now he fears death. And it's haunting. It's chilling.
Yeah, but he's also kind of at peace with the fact that he's afraid, right? Because he says we're alone. No one's looking out for us, so we have to look out for ourselves, basically.
Yeah.
And more than once throughout the movie after this point, he's confronted with questions that he answers honestly, and almost always those answers, people are looking for comfort from him, and he's just being blunt. Yeah,
Even in that conversation, he's like, some people think the world's gonna end. Do you think that's true? Yes.
Yes, I do.
It's just like,
And then later when they sleep through the night and wake up, he's like, you didn't think we were going to make it through the night, did you? And he's like, nope, I really didn't. I thought we were all going to die.
yeah.
So we get a flashback here to the night Colleen died. Mel's
I also wanted to mention, funny that when they argue over which tape to tape the news on.
Yeah.
and then it's just like, I'm going to use your tape, Uncle Merle, and it's just like it says swimsuit special, which I'm like,
Yeah.
what does that mean?
It's
Like,
he
it's
just
like
obviously taped some
it's like a Miss America contest
Yeah,
or
it's-
something.
exactly. Yeah.
The Sports Illustrated used to put those things on TV that were just like a woman. Like remember Wild On? Remember
we
the
were
show?
14 at the time. I don't know.
You're with the fucking
Jason,
demographic.
we were having sleepovers in basements.
You weren't watching the infomercials where it's like,
Yeah.
"Get out your tongue."
Yeah, we weren't in rural Nova Scotia. We had a lot
With
going
the
on.
perverts.
We're in
Freaks.
rural Brampton. we come from a similar place. Is my
Yeah,
point.
I know. I'm just teasing.
No, that's funny. I knew what a swimsuit special was. I felt like, oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
I get it.
I had an image conjured in my mind. But
Yeah,
I was like,
it's
what
just-
it could be anything. I don't know. What
Yeah,
that is.
because it's just something came on and there were some babes in swimsuits,
Yeah.
and he ran and grabbed a tape and recorded it and was all excited, and then
exactly
he got
And
out a
the-
marker
the
and like,
vague the
you know
vagueness
what I mean?
of it is where the comedy lies, right? Where it's like it could mean a Miss America contest, or it could just mean like a volleyball game. Is
yeah,
on or
anything
something.
really. Just it's just they're so close to taping over the ballet recital,
Yeah.
and you're weighing the importance of this precious moment
Yeah,
that is
You'll never get
super
back.
important. You'll never get
Yeah.
back. It's so
Especially
important
where
to the family.
Morgan keeps saying, like, this thing on TV, you're going to want your kids to remember it. And
Well,
Bo is
exactly.
like, well, I want my kids to remember me
Yeah.
having a ballet
But then
recital.
Morgan makes a kind of a valid point where it's like, this is the most important thing that's ever happened.
Yeah.
And we have to document it. But then the humor is like it's like Sophie's choice of what to do about this tape, and then they just have like
Another
Meryl's stupid throwaway
jerk
tape
off
that-
tape.
yeah,
yeah,
exactly,
he's been using it as
his
material
crusty
for 8
swimsuit
years.
tape
It's
that he could
fucking
just
spank bank.
The pages are somehow stuck together.
yeah.
Uncle Merle, why is this tape so
Why,
sticky?
is it, why doesn't it play? Why is it so
It
gooey?
won't go into the VCR properly. Disgusting.
Why is it worn out in this one part?
Oh,
The tracking's all
just
fucked
tracking
here.
gets all fucked
Yeah.
at like one moment, like 1:30. Anyway, Meryl's been jacking it. The flashback to the night that Colleen died. Mel Gibson is still a reverend at this point. Graham is still a reverend. We find out that Ray fell asleep just that night. Shyamalan. And he wasn't really to blame for anything. He just was tired because he's a doctor, veterinarian. He's a veterinarian.
Veterinarian.
Right? He's a
He's a
doctor.
vet.
He's
He's a dog doctor.
Doctor. Anyway, it was late at night, but it was also dinner time.
yeah.
Yeah, how tired was this guy? What time
Yeah.
was it? It was like
I was
6:30.
working. I was working till must have been 5:45.
Must have been 6 p.m.
Listen, I had to do 14
Yeah.
cap appendectomies today.
Yeah.
I'm
at-
pooched. My dogs are barking.
He's at the clinic giving ketamine to some horse. It's like, one for you, one for me. You know what I mean?
One
Like,
for you, one for me.
Yeah, check that man's blood.
Oh
yeah,
my
he wasn't
God.
drinking.
Yeah.
No. Anyway, he wakes up from it as though he was dreaming.
He wasn't drinking, but there's a lot of anesthesia in his veins.
Yeah, he's
All
got-
these empty NyQuil bottles.
He's like, if you drink enough NyQuil and you force yourself to stay awake, you really trip out and see some crazy shit.
And then you
Yeah,
borrow
I had this
old
crazy dream
Meryl's.
that I drove into this woman and pinned her to a tree, and then aliens showed up.
You drink enough NyQuil and borrow old Meryl's
Yeah,
fucking swimsuit contest video.
Yeah.
You see some shit.
Yeah.
So he runs downstairs, or he runs over. He goes into Meryl's in the closet with the TV now, bloodshot eyes, just watching the invasion happen.
He talks about the bird hits the cloaked ship and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a
I actually
wall or
wanted to
something.
I wanted to talk about this a little bit because this is one of those examples of, there's a rule in filmmaking where you show and you don't tell. And there are examples where that is the case is opposite.
Yeah, they
And I would
tell
say
a
that
lot in this movie.
Yeah.
this is a lot of moments in this movie are told to you. But the visuals that they evoke are really powerful because I'm still convinced that there is a scene in this movie where you see a bird hit an invisible
Yes.
thing on the news and falls.
Yeah,
That
because he
doesn't
even
happen.
just points at
it
he points
and
and he's
goes
like, oh, there's a
goes like
bird
that.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he says they've been showing it all day over and over again. They found the bird and its head was crushed. And like, there's a few other movies where this happens. There are people who swear that you see the head in the box in Seven and you don't.
Yeah.
And this is one of those moments where I'm like, I watched it this afternoon and I watched it on Tuesday and I'm like, I swear you see the bird though, right? Like,
You're
even
looking
today, I
for
was
like a little
yeah.
pixelated bird.
But I have like the image in my mind of this thing falling.
And what they do show is how like horrified and terrified he is.
Yeah, he's freaking out. And there's a couple of other moments in this movie where I have memories of things that occur, but it's not, you don't have those things. It's just the movie is does such a good job of describing things through people's emotions and the way they're reacting to them that you don't need to see them and you're feeling the same thing that they are. Which again is just sort of a good example of M. Night Shyamalan's sort of magical powers as a filmmaker. He does it in a lot of his movies, but like, even though you don't see the wife split in half, there's like a part of me that's like, yeah,
Yeah.
I know what's happening
I
here.
thought
And
I thought I remembered. Oh yeah,
Seeing
I guess I don't remember them
falling
like
into
reversing
pieces.
the truck. Yeah,
But like you
but I must
almost
have imagined it very vividly when I was a kid.
But you just imagine that the reveal of the wife is a lot more gruesome than it actually is because of the amount of detail that the officer gives in describing what's happened to her.
Yes, and she gets the hot dog out and everything.
Yeah, and the taco, breaks it in half.
I kind of want to watch that movie after watching this movie.
Yeah, you
honestly.
should.
Charlie Sheen's hamming it up. They keep making references to everything, not just
you'll understand a lot more of the movie this time around, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like, actually,
We're not so different after all. And then Leslie Nielsen pees out of his finger.
This is also where we get the great shot of the kids wearing the tinfoil hats.
Yeah.
Which is another thing from this movie that, like, I knew about it. That from over the years we'd see stills from this movie, them wearing they're not just tinfoil hats. They've got a little point on them.
They're like full Hershey Kiss.
Yeah,
yeah. It's definitely a part of the iconography of this movie. Where when you think of this movie, you think of very specific shots, and the field with the sign in it, them with the tinfoil hat,
and the glasses of water.
And I guess like the end with the alien in the reflection in the TV. Those are the three things that it kind of I think of most when I think of this movie. Also, some of the funniest lines in the movie are in this sequence, split directly in half by the horrifying image in the bush, which is the more we talk about it, the more I'm like, that's pretty funny too. But he's like, what are you reading? And he tells him that it's the book. And he says, who wrote it? And he says, scientists who've been persecuted for their theories.
So unemployed scientists.
Yeah. And then he's when he says that, the snarky comment and rebuke, it's like he almost like doesn't let him. He's like, well, I'm not gonna let you read it if you're gonna make fun of it.
Yeah. Okay, if you're not gonna take this seriously, then just go
and get out of here.
It's very mature.
Yeah. And then he makes fun of the scientist's name, which is, I can't remember what it is. It's like Mr. or Professor Mookie or something weird. It's like it doesn't sound very very professional sounding, but again, like Morgan just gives him daggers, like, hey man, just give me a second and we'll read it together here.
They determine the aliens also are like either explorers or they're hostile. And that sort of comes up in a little bit where it's like, if they're just exploring, then that's fine. They're here to just look and leave.
Yeah.
If they're hostile, they're going to attack. And if they lose, they're going to leave and come back with a bigger army. That's like a little bit later that they actually get to that point.
Yeah, hundreds, perhaps thousands of years from now. Yeah.
So either way, we're screwed, essentially. But what happens here that I found really interesting, there's not a lot of real jump scares in this movie. But there's a telephone ringing jump scare at this point where they're just talking to each other and the phone rings like louder than it should be, which I've noticed that movies will do sometimes to like whatever the opposite of breaking tension is.
I think I'm not a huge fan of undeserved jump scares, which we've talked about before because we've done quite a few horror movies here and there. But when one is deserved, I'm always happy, right? Like it startles you, you get the effect that it's going for, but you're also like, it's breaking a tension that they've built, and if it's unexpected and it scares you, it's different than something just popping up on the screen and making you frightened for 2 seconds, and then you're like, oh, my heart. Whereas this is like, they're showing you something that's already quite scary and odd. And Alex, as you said, it's like he really focuses on that, but he probably should have turned the page, and that's where you get the phone call, right?
Yeah.
So I would say it's all of the jump scares in this movie, which there aren't too many. I think maybe the hand.
The hand is definitely a jump scare. It's more eerie, I think, than anything else, and it makes you feel like you're going to get jump scared. It
ratchets the tension a lot. Like it really kind of holds you on that line.
And I don't like that either. That's the whole reason why I was afraid of slasher movies when I was a kid. I thought every movie was going to have, the big moment. I thought every kill in like Friday the 13th was Jason coming around the corner and axing people to the face. When you watch those movies, you actually realize it's not really like that. It's a lot more there are jump scares, but it's a lot more like deliberate and kind of funny the way that he kills people. Like there's a scene in I think 4 where he just throws a guy through like 3 front windows. Like there's 3 windows in the front of a house. He just throws a dead guy through it, and it's so chaotic and crazy and funny.
The editing of that scene for a split second, you're like, did Jason just jump through the window? And then it just shows the guy dead. You're like, oh no, he threw a guy through the window. That's much better.
And that's those slasher films from the 80s there's a lot more of that, but it's this kind of storytelling, this kind of horror that gets under my skin a lot more even now, because they don't have to rely on any gore. They don't have to rely on any plotting killer or monster.
And there's no kills.
There's no kills.
No.
There's almost 1 kill.
Yeah, almost.
Which is almost like a prophecy thing too, which made me, when she's like, I don't want you to die, and then you think he's gonna die, and then there's a little M. Night Shyamalan twist that he doesn't. It's like, oh, she's actually not a clairvoyant. She's just a weird kid.
She just thinks that all these terrible things are going to happen all the time.
Yeah.
Probably because her mom got pinned to a tree
to a
and
tree
fell
and
in
cut in
half.
half.
Definitely got trauma.
At the chest, at the stomach.
And the amoebas. Just everywhere.
Don't forget about the
Betcha.
amoebas, yeah.
So it's the person on the phone is Ray. Ray just hangs up.
I did want to say that I think one of my favorite lines is when he's leaving to go answer the phone, and Mel Gibson says, "Everyone in this house needs to calm down and eat some fruit or something."
yeah.
It's like such a weird dad answer. Like, just eat some fruit and you'll feel fine. And I agree.
Mel goes over to Ray's house. We don't know who is on the phone, but then we find out that he went to Ray's house. He sees the house is trashed. The truck is packed. Ray has blood on his shirt as if to show that he was in some sort of tussle or dust up. And also, the dialogue that Ray says here is really weird, because he says I've got one trapped in my pantry, and then he talks about going up to the lake where I hear that they don't like water. But the way that he says the I've got one trapped in the pantry is really reminiscent of early in the movie when Bo says like there's a monster outside my room, where it's just in passing and you don't like it's weird that he said that.
And he also kind of says it late, and it's like they have this whole conversation, and it's like wouldn't kind of bearing the lead. It's like, wouldn't you be like,
wait, what
holy
was
shit,
that?
there's an alien in my pantry.
Yeah.
Like right off the bat, right?
I think
Yeah.
The purpose of this, I mean, logically, yes, but you know, his movies are illogical a lot of the time. And it is all determined. So the issue with that structurally,
It's
I
the
would
micro
say, is
twists that I was
if
talking
he said
about.
if he was to say that first, then your
The
immediate
whole it dominates
you want
the
them to go
conversation.
look you want them to get in the house immediately after that. And it also, you know, it then adds the tension that you need right at the end of that sequence for him to go in the house, and you know what he's dealing with, right?
But there's an information dump during the scene. Like this is like a mini climax of the movie, because he mentions that we see the house ransacked. He turns around, sees him in the car. He mentions that there's something in the pantry, talks about where, like, the water thing, and then he's like, there's no way that I could have been on that road that night at the perfect time that your wife would also be there. It's like it was fate. So like this moment has so much fucking, it's like an exposition dump without it being a literal exposition dump. It just assures you that you were right about a bunch of stuff throughout the movie, and also makes you feel a way about a bunch of stuff from the movie.
Yeah, it's also supposed to be a moment of reparation for him, right? He's given the opportunity to forgive this guy for what he's done, and though he doesn't say the words, you can kind of see it in his face that he is giving him the nod of like, I really appreciate that you're saying this.
He wrote the movie, so he's trying to warn him. It's like, it's water.
Yeah.
Water's the thing.
Yes, we're talking about the grander theme of this sequence.
No, literally, M. Night Shyamalan.
Make sure you stock up on water guns. Mel Gibson.
Yeah. Give him a knowing wink.
Yeah.
But
do you have a hose? Do you have a high pressure hose with a nice nozzle on it, Mel Gibson?
Yeah. Well, and I thought, and in the moment, it felt like it seemed a bit callous in his like, it's almost like I was supposed to run over your wife. Yeah. I'd be like, you know what I mean? Like if someone said that to me, I feel like I would have an outburst. You know what I
for
mean?
sure,
Like,
but I think most people would. But I think that the training that he has as a reverend
Yeah.
and people coming to him with their problems and probably just talking from a perspective of like, this is almost therapy for me, and just saying what's coming into their heads. He's
Yeah.
so used to dealing with it, and it does have a massive effect on him, right? Like he almost breaks down and starts
Yeah.
crying, but he also understands why this guy is saying it. He's saying this because he needs to say that and he needs to feel that way in
Yeah.
order to justify the fact that he essentially committed manslaughter.
Yeah.
And it's important for Mel Gibson's character, I think, to like be faced with that scenario in which he has somebody saying something to him that could potentially be so hurtful or so full of request for forgiveness.
Mhm.
And he doesn't choose to do either, right? He kind of like toes the line, and it looks like he wants to grab him and be like, "You fucking asshole!
Yeah.
I don't believe in
But
God
he
anymore."
takes confession.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah.
he reverts to that, and that is very intentional. Like
Yeah.
that he's having that moment.
And he
And
does.
it's good. I
Ray
think it's
does
a
get
good-
to do a huge thank you, thank you for letting me kill
Thank
your
you
wife.
for
No, sorry, I misspoke. He does get to do a huge apology here, where he's like, "I am sincerely from the bottom of my heart sorry." And then he suggests an alien's in the pantry. He's like, go check
It's
out
like,
the pantry.
Yeah, stay out of my pantry. I think I got
Yeah.
one of them trapped in. Like, yeah, are you sure?
No, he just didn't want him to raid his NyQuil stash.
Yeah,
He's like, stay out of my
Yeah,
pantry.
stay out of my
there's
NyQuil.
an
You're gonna
alien
find out
in
all
there."
about how I'm a booze hound for NyQuil, and I mix Dayquil at the same time to reach NyQuilibrium.
Afternoon quill.
Yeah, NyQuilibrium.
Equilibrium.
Ugh. It's hard
But
to say.
before we do get into the house, though, we do get the sequence that
Yeah,
I think a
there's
lot
a
of
back
people,
and forth
when we
moment
were
here.
kids, this was the scene in the movie that like everybody talked about in the schoolyard, and everybody was like, "You see signs? Holy shit! That part with the news broadcast is the wildest thing I've ever seen in my life." Nowadays, it's like, okay, you know it's coming. I guess it could still be pretty freaky if you don't know what
I
you're
didn't
about
know.
to see.
It was really cool
Yeah.
looking found footage from my point of view, who had never seen the movie before.
It spooked me when I watched it
Yeah.
recently.
I mean, I've seen this so many times that I'm now just like over analyzing what I'm looking at and being like, it's kind of walking weird. They could have animated that slightly better.
That's how I felt about when
but-
we finally see the alien at the end. But this has the quality of it's like somebody filming it on an actual camcorder, not even a phone.
yeah,
So it's got that graininess to it. And I thought that the alien was going to... So they show this backyard that it's like, it's comically shallow. Like the area from the window to the hedge at the back is like maybe 8 feet. Like
Yeah.
there was only enough room for like a table and some chairs. It was
Have you
really...
seen a backyard in Toronto?
Yeah, I know,
Tiny.
but it just felt, because the hedge was so high, maybe. I think that's what,
Right.
it was maybe representative of the corn. He was trying to evoke the feeling of the corn from the cornfields earlier in the movie, maybe that's what he was going for. But my point here is that, like, when the shaky cam panning over and then they show the alien with that like zoom in, zoom out thing that they always do with camcorders, it looked really real. The CGI was not bad at all for that. When they're like just showing the alien with a hard shot at the end of the movie, and it's clearly like bad 2002 CGI, that's when I was like, ugh. That's
They only do that
unfortunate.
once though in that
That's
entire
true.
sequence.
That's true. They show the alien mostly in reflections, which I thought was a good way to get around it. But
yeah.
I don't know why they wouldn't
It's
just
they,
like do
they
a,
had to
a
show
mix
the
of practical.
water. They had to show the water burning it, and
True.
I don't really know why we needed to see it, because we could just have the thing making noise when water drizzles on it and we would get it.
Or even like steam, like just see the steam go up from behind
My
it or
theory
something.
of this is that, because I did watch a making of thing, and they did want to do practical, but there was a bunch of issues they ran into, so they ended up going to CGI. My theory is that they probably tested the movie without showing the alien at all in the sequence, and people were a little bit confused. So they're like, we need to have some sort of shot of the water touching the skin for people to actually get what's going on. I don't know if that's true, but it would make sense to me.
I just wanted to use that because there was I didn't have any like crazy theories, and you said theory, so that's.
Can you do the theory thing again?
I can.
My iPad is talking.
I have a theory that there were no aliens. It was just Lionel Pritchard and the Wolfington brothers.
I'll be right back. My iPad, for some reason, just started playing music.
It's him! Run! He's got his theories! They're all so terrible!
So we had previously thought it would be funny if somebody has a bad theory that, because it originally started with me fucking, it's basically just headcanon, just like
Yeah.
bong thoughts from my dream journal, which is another thing that we called it. So the short theory I think I'm going to do when somebody says theory now, but if you get that sting, it's Terry Pritchard the whole time.
Right. Oh, it's also weird to me that every time they show a news broadcast, the news broadcaster will be like, this footage was shot by a 32-year-old man in Argentina, or like, this movie was shot by a 45-year-old man. I'm like, why do they keep saying the ages of the cameraman? So strange.
That's M. Night doing a little mini
Do they
twist.
do that on the news? I don't think they do.
No,
Yeah.
they definitely don't.
I don't know.
These numbers mean something.
I think they just want to establish where it is, and then the rest is kind of filler to make it seem less like just blatant exposition.
Yeah, it's like people say people's names on the news, right? We'll just say everyone's age constantly.
We're definitely
Where was the party?
It was
The
no, it
birthday
wasn't.
party?
It was I think they were speaking Portuguese.
See, I watched it on Disney Plus.
So did I.
At the beginning, because I always watch everything with subtitles, they had the kids were talking and it said speaking in Spanish, and then when they get to the window, the one little boy says "Wah!" and it's like speaking in Portuguese.
Okay, I thought it was supposed to be Mexico.
I thought it was supposed to be Mexico too,
but
maybe they had a Portuguese kid there, or a Brazilian kid.
but that's
no,
just
it's just bad subtitles, I'm sure.
Okay, so I just want to. We're 10 after the hour. We're gonna go way over. So buckle up. Is that cool with everyone?
I'm buckled.
Cool.
We're also close to the end, so
I think we're going to be able to gloss over some stuff towards the end, and we've talked about a lot of it already. But anyway, we definitely have a moment here where Mel still thinks it's a hoax.
Yeah.
Graham still thinks it's a hoax going into the pantry. The host has been ransacked. I thought it was ransacked. I didn't really put it together.
just a fight. He fought the alien.
Pushed him into the closet. We get a really funny thing where he's pretending to be a police officer because he still thinks it's a person. So he's saying like, "You'll get off."
Took him downtown in a paddy wagon.
Exactly.
Hedging his bets that it's either an alien or Lionel Pritchard.
But he doesn't know how to speak like a regular cop. He only knows how to speak like a cop from old movies.
Yeah.
So he's talking
see?
like
Took your friends down in the paddy wagon.
Yeah.
And then he even
Paddy
does like the. Why'd I say paddy wagon?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then he gets a knife. This was really fucking freaky to me because we've seen the alien now like in bits and pieces a couple times, and I thought we were gonna see like the alien's face in a jump scary kind of way. And this tension here is so good. He puts the knife, like the shiniest Cuisinart fucking knife you've ever seen, underneath the door, and he's looking around with it to like see if he can see the reflection. And we don't see it, but while he pulls it away and then puts it back. And as he's putting it back, a hand, the freakiest hand you ever saw, comes through from underneath like the fingers, and he just like fight or flights the fingers off. He just cuts the fingers off, and we learn later that I guess they have some sort of healing power because that alien was fine later.
No, his finger was missing.
Yeah, they were missing, but like.
Oh yeah,
there was
like
no,
not
blood.
Yeah, no, it didn't look injured. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh shit.
Did we lose Steve completely
Steve
or what?
dropped.
Okay.
He was like, "I hate this theory." Theories.
Yeah, theories. So I'll say this: I obviously knew that scene, and I know it's the finger scene, right? And I'm bracing for it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I haven't seen the movie in a long time. I felt like I was bracing and bracing and bracing, and they just weren't giving me the fingers because you're right. He goes in and he comes out, and he goes in and he comes out.
Well, how do you think I felt? You knew it was
I
coming.
I know. But I was like, I kind of psyched myself up for the fingers, and then they just really keep that going, right?
Yeah, it's one of the. It's like the only other jump scare wasn't even a monster jump scare.
Yeah.
This was literally like this almost feels like the climax of the movie in a lot of ways. It's not, because that kind of
it's kind of a payoff though. It's kind of like
yeah.
a payoff. It is an actual confrontation
Yeah.
with the alien instead of just either hearing, it's not even seeing it on the news, having Meryl tell you about what he saw on the news,
Yeah.
or just, you know what I mean, seeing the shadowy figures and stuff, or the leg,
exactly.
The leg.
corn leg.
And
Corn leg.
Speaking of Meryl, Graham
It's gonna be my
just
new
fucking
Sea of
runs
Thieves
over there.
handle. Corn leg.
Corn leg.
Yarr!
Graham runs the fuck out of there because he's like, I'm not about this. And when he gets back, we get the iconic shot of the three of them. Now Meryl's got the tinfoil hat on, and that's an image right there that I've, like Steve was saying earlier. Like, that's so the iconography of that is so prevalent, and that's what you think of when you think of this movie, like the poster, that image, and the rest of the.
But it's very funny because it's like, it's set up so perfectly by the kids having them earlier, and then it's like,
yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It puts him in. It's almost kind of like a Mr. Bean turkey head moment.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, and you see him,
You're right.
and then even then, Graham doesn't really. It's like what does he say? He says, "I think I saw one at Ray Reddy's house or whatever."
Mm-hmm.
It's like he just cut its fucking taloned fingers off. And he's like, yeah, okay, well, maybe there's an alien.
I guess there's aliens.
You know what I mean? Like,
and this is what I was referencing earlier, where he's like, what happens if they're hostile? And he's basically like, you know, they would fight on the ground. We wouldn't want to nuke them because then, you know, they don't. It seems like the aliens want this planet as their own planet. It seems like they want to maybe terraform this place into being their own world.
Yeah.
If they cause,
they're not going scorched earth.
Exactly. If they cause the humans to go scorched earth, and that just fucks up their whole plan. If they lose in a ground mission, they're gonna leave and come back in 100 years, maybe 1,000 years, and we still lose. Oh, Steve dropped again. I wonder if it's his internet.
Welcome to the Jason and Alex show.
Hello, this is my new co-host Alex. And we're talking science, and we only talk science now. It's the only movie we do each and every week. Podcast. We can come back and we just cover the same movie over and over in before time immemorial to time after memorial. Mel would want to go to the. Oh yeah, okay. So this is where they cast the vote. Basically, Graham wants to bounce and go to the lake, as Ray Reddy had mentioned earlier. And I think, is it Morgan wants to stay and fight? Morgan's like, this is
Morgan wants to hold the ground, and
and Meryl also wants to stay, and Bo
wants to go.
But we get this strong bond between Bo and Morgan throughout the whole movie, where you sort of learn that no matter what Morgan wants to do, Bo is going to end up following suit. So she initially goes with her dad, and then when Morgan says what he wants to do, she says, I want to do that. And then Graham starts doing dad politics, where when she switches again, he's like, no, my vote counts for 2.
You don't get to change your
and
vote.
You don't get to change your vote, so we're going. But they end up staying, and then they do kind of like the
last meal.
Like the last meal. This is also during this, like, we just get that shot of Meryl going to get supplies, and he's coming back with some supplies, and he throws the rock that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
But we also find out that the lights are over 247 cities now. They're straight up invading. Meryl
and
mentions
this
War of the Worlds.
Yeah. And I think this is the point, basically, where Graham has decided that we're going to lose.
Yeah.
And that it is over. Like, it's the end times.
It's the end times, and it's like the unknown is the thing about it, right? Like, they don't really have any frame of reference, and they've already had their host violated several times by aliens. You know, like, they've been there. They know, they've walked. They should have had a scene where they literally see a footprint in the grass of a weird foot or something, or like in the dirt. I guess there's a giant weird footprint of the signs of the crop
that's true.
circles in the backyard.
They do leave some imprint. but yeah, and I feel like it's like he's lost his religious faith from the beginning, and then this is kind of like the secondary floor falls out, and he's lost faith basically in even the hope to survive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the dinner, which is feels like almost like Jonestown. You know what I mean? It's very like, and that is definitely something that I didn't think was so heavy-handed when I was younger. I don't know if I was just too young to really get this, like, his emotional state or whatever, but it's like watching it now, it's like, okay, he's certain they're gonna die. He's just trying to have a comfortable death for his children.
Yeah, they with a tear in his eye and a smile, after they're literally boarding up their house, he brings up the concept of the final meal, and he's like,
Yeah.
"What do you all want to eat?" And they go around, and Bo wants spaghetti, Morgan wants French toast and mashed potatoes,
Yeah.
Meryl wants chicken teriyaki, and Graham wants a cheeseburger, extra bacon.
Yeah. I was surprised with what they were able to whip up with what they had.
The teriyaki,
Like, the
was
teriyaki
thing
was
that I
a real
like,
curveball.
I guess it's just a bottle a lot of the time. Like, you know,
Yeah,
the
I
VH
guess, yeah.
teriyaki.
It was just like an instant ramen pack.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
teriyaki.
they also strike me as the kind of town where you go to a restaurant and they have rice on the menu and they're like, "Oh, rice!
rice.
You know what I mean? That's not a
Exotic.
potato."
Yeah.
With sesame oil. Holy
Oh.
moly. Good gravy. They also have gravy.
The scene where he's asking what they want is really sort of a it's like a telling moment of like, okay, he is losing his mind to a degree, right? Like
Yeah.
he's on his way to becoming a full-fledged member of the odd world that is this village of people.
Yeah.
It's like at first it feels like he's trying to put them at ease, and then it kind of gets strange.
Well, when
really.
you were gone, I said it gets very Jonestown, and
Right.
it's clear that he's planning their last meal and has lost faith that they'll make it through.
Right. Okay.
Um,
I was going to make the same connection, but I'm glad you did it.
yes.
And then we already spoke about the rage
dinner.
building, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, I think the most touching moment for me in terms of like the effect it had on me emotionally. I was like, wow, God, I'm sad. This movie is working.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other moments that didn't quite work for me as well. Now I'm not sure if they did at some point, but this one still works for me. And as I said before, that comedic angle
Yeah,
of
the
him pulling
grabbing
Marilyn
of
is
Meryl.
just so good. Yeah.
And then they notice the attic, that the attic door wasn't boarded or whatever.
Right.
I like the shots where they were filming around the boards. That was cool.
Yeah, I also like that they fully cover up the doors because like there's a few of them that I'm like, the door opens inward. if you are putting the boards there, it's just like
They have an impressive amount of planks as well.
yeah.
Although I guess not enough to do the bedrooms. So
No.
That's true.
The planks were all like weirdly misshapen and from other stuff. It looked like
yeah,
were
they're
from
very
other
video
doors.
game planks.
Exactly, like an infinite amount of like Call of Duty Zombies planks,
yeah.
or there was some other game. The Back for Blood planks as well.
Yeah.
They make this extravagant meal and then don't eat a single bite, and then because they're all mortified at what's happening, and then Graham is just like, just friggin' eat, man. We gotta eat.
Steals the French toast.
He's
Which I
taking.
think-
I'll eat some of all of your food.
Yeah, isn't that a thing that also happens to people on death row though? They get this extravagant last meal and then most people just don't even touch it.
Yeah.
Or they'll have like one bite and they're like, I can't.
It's kind
eat.
of like a fuck
I'm
you to
gonna die.
the system, or somebody will be like, I want a single cherry.
Yeah.
Just that guy's a weirdo.
yeah.
He gets an
Yeah,
electric
yeah,
chair
yeah.
and injection.
Yeah.
Yeah. He must have been in for something wild.
But Morgan, like, Graham's yelling at the kids, and Morgan's like, I hate you, because Graham doesn't believe anymore. That was a really crazy, intense
Yeah, because
moment.
the kids want to say their prayers or whatever.
Yeah, they want to pray. And he's like,
Yeah.
we don't want to do prayers anymore. We're not a God-fearing.
I'm not wasting another minute of my life on prayer.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think also Morgan, it's just him saying I hate you and you let mom die is probably something that he's been thinking and feeling for 6 months and
Yeah.
he just let it out.
Yeah.
and he obviously immediately regrets it, right? Like within less than a minute.
Morgan is always the bigger man in all these conflicts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's far more mature
Graham.
than anybody
No,
else
he
on
is.
this
Like
farm.
anytime there's tension, Morgan's always feels like he's always like the
Morgan is the hold up. Morgan's the audience insert.
Oh.
Jeez. I don't know if that's a theory.
Well, we got to use the theory theme multiple times.
All
It's
right.
very short. But while they're all hugging, the baby monitor goes off, indicating that the aliens are close. And also, they go to check the TV, and it's off air. It's showing that at 5 a.m. in the States, they've got that weird thing,
the Fallout thing.
Yeah, which we just had what you just did, just the lines,
bars, yeah,
and we'd get that
Color
sign
bars.
off, but I think in the States they get the sign off, and then that pattern.
I don't think we get that anymore. This is one of those
Do
moments
channels
where
go
I
off air anymore? Yeah.
No, this is
What's
one of
a
those
channel?
Things, yeah, exactly. This is one of those things where like people
YouTube channel.
Yeah, Gen Z and Gen Alpha are gonna see that and be like, "What is that?" Like every channel on television just plays 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
now.
I'm gonna start when we're not doing our show. I'm gonna just put the bars up 24/7.
Yeah. Yeah, if that was made today, they'd go out there and they'd be like, "Look!" and like a Kitchen Nightmares rerun is on, or something.
Exactly.
The end of the world.
Hot Ones is just on.
We got aliens here doing the bomb.
Oh, and this is the point where Meryl calls him Graham, and this is the first time in the movie I knew his name.
Oh, there you go.
I wrote his name is Graham, finally, but I spelt it Finmally. Because when I'm trying to type and watch a movie, I'm just like mashing the keyboard. I always think I'm going to have a short way of writing words, and then I tried that, and I was like, "What does this mean?" And you guys knew, but
we knew
no clue.
we knew what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Because
Why did I just write soda?
Yeah.
So we get a really sweet moment where Graham tells Bo, the story of when she was born. She was like the most beautiful baby, and she was smiling, which is a weird thing, as babies don't smile when they're born. And I was like, that's paranormal. This kid is a telekinesis child.
Also, if a newborn baby was smiling at you, it would be horrifying. I think. Like,
but she was
it's like a baby laugh smile, not like a full tooth grin out of the womb. Like, hey, daddy,
it's scary. I don't know. Yeah, babies frighten me.
Human-sized
I'm here.
teeth. It just looks like a fish with teeth.
Yeah.
Also, this part sucks. I bet if you go onto that website that is like, does the dog die? This part is probably mentioned for this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the dog dies for sure, yeah.
But we get that, like, and I'm not saying that it's not open to interpretation. It's just a shitty sound. The sound design once comes in clutch.
It's not disturbing though. Like, it is obviously disturbing to a degree, but it's not like, there's sometimes when you hear an animal being
earlier
killed.
when they stabbed the dog.
Yeah, that's more disturbing. Yeah.
It's not like the other dog kill in the movie.
Yeah.
But there are dog yelps and sound effects in movies that make my stomach turn, and I'm like, oh my god, you can really hear the pain in this thing.
Yeah,
I think they might have toned that sound effect down a little bit, because it wasn't as disturbing as like the deer in Get Out making those like which I believe is just Jordan Peele making sound effects with his mouth.
Probably.
Yeah.
So the dog clearly gets fucking eviscerated by the smart aliens. And then, so I have to ask you guys a question that that kind of comes up around now. I think this is the time for this.
I think I know what you're gonna ask.
What do you think the Home Alone of it all?
the Home Alone of it all?
Can someone please tell me when the Home Alone of
I
it all
really gotta
happens?
know.
When is the Home Alone of it all?
What is the Home Alone of it all?
Now that's the Home Alone of it all.
Alex, I know you've seen this show before, so you might be familiar with this concept. But if you're not, the Home Alone of it all is the idea that in every movie, there's a moment where, much like in the movie Home Alone, where Kevin McAllister slaps down the blueprint and says, "These wet bandits are coming. I'm going to put up a bunch of traps for them." And that's the part of the movie you want to see. what's the version of that for this? What's the Home Alone of it all for science? Now, I'm going to say, what did I write down for the Home Alone of it all? I'm going to say that the Home Alone of it all was when the aliens start creeping around the house right around now. Right around now is like they've got the house boarded up. They're ready for the aliens to come, and they're hunkered down. What do you guys think about that?
I would have called it a little earlier. I felt that the decision to board and the confidence, they're boarding very purposely and like autonomously. Like it's not, especially when they first start doing it, like Meryl and Graham are doing it. It's like they're boarding up the house like it's a storm that's forecast, and less like aliens are gonna jump kick through the window and kill my kids. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's a good.
I go even earlier than that. I think the Home Alone of it all is the moment that Merle sees the alien on TV at the birthday party.
Okay.
Specifically because you see the alien for the first time, and then we cut to Graham fucking with the alien in the pantry, and then that is when it kicks off to like, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna deal with this? Do we go to the lake? Do we board up the house? And that's when all of the sort of stakes of the movie become extremely real to me.
Yeah.
Okay. I did write another note after mine. I thought the Home Alone of it all might be this, like, from here on out. But when Ray leaves, when he drives off, and Graham goes into the house and sees and, like, finally believes that the aliens exist. Might be another
Yeah, that's for
contender.
sure. Or
Yeah,
when
that's
they introduce a Culkin, that's kind of Home Alone.
I was going
right
to
at the
say,
beginning.
the second they show Morgan and you're like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that's the Home Alone of it all.
Aliens. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
great. That was a good. That was
The
a
alien bandits.
Good, it's just
I mean,
Daniel
they
Stern,
are the
Joe
wet
Pesci.
bandits by the end.
They should
right?
have put a nail on the stairs to going down to the basement.
Exactly. And
man.
if Rory Culkin is doing all of it, like he's like, why don't we set some traps up?
Yeah.
It's like, no.
They've got all these half-empty
Yeah, he
paint
grabs
cans.
the basement doorknob and gets the M burned into his hand.
Starts putting down ornaments all over the ground.
Yeah.
So when they step through the window. That was good. Good job, friends. Then we get the story of Morgan at birth. So Colleen, the mother, had for months, I guess, before Morgan was born, like imagined, like had dreams of what Morgan would look like. And when Morgan was born, Colleen like was like bleeding a lot. I think they were implying she had a cesarean section, but if not, there was a lot of blood.
Yeah,
so
it was
they
a traumatic birth, whatever it was.
They had to separate them. But when they brought Morgan back to Colleen, she was like, "This is exactly what I had envisioned you to look like." And then
You look just like Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah, holy shit. Have you ever seen Home Alone?
Have you seen this one? So your newborn baby?
Hey, did you see this unborn baby? It's just a dream. They forgot the attic door. This is the moment when they realized that, which is kind of an oversight. Maybe don't have the extravagant dinner and make sure we're completely sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they also forgot their dog. Like these
Right.
people are
Well,
not-
no, but the dogs were going nuts.
I know, but they're supposed
Oh,
to
they
put
were
them
going
in
to
the
lock
barn.
it in the
yeah.
shed. Yeah, but then they already boarded up the house.
Yeah, whoops. Sorry, Isabel.
Yeah.
You fucked.
Yeah.
Then they head for the basement, and we got the basement sequence. Meryl grabs an axe, and he fucking like a dumb man just swings it into the
Yeah.
into the light bulb and just
That's something that would happen to
smashes
me.
it out.
That
Yeah.
would most definitely happen to me. I would do that.
You rolled a natty 1.
Like I do every moment of my life. Every
Can we
day.
acknowledge something? Is this
Sure.
the first time any of them have been in that basement?
That's what I feel like Macaulay Culkin. Morgan, he's more familiar with the basement than everybody else, and that's why I was brought up the baby monitor thing
I was
earlier.
more familiar with the basement than everybody else.
Like I've seen this movie.
Like there's coal. I feel a breeze. It's like
it's
you've
crazy
never
that
been
they,
down there.
Yeah,
or-
they don't know where the
That
coal
big grate
shaft
in the wall is?
Yeah, it's over here. I think I feel air.
I feel air.
I mean, maybe they're all scared of the basement and they just
Yeah,
run
maybe.
down there to store
Yeah.
stuff. And they're
Yeah,
like,
the furnace is
"Ugh."
really scary.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, exactly.
That's the Home Alone of it all. The scary basement.
Oh, just as an aside, Dirac Attack is in the chat. He wants to know. Apologies if you guys already covered this, just tuned in recently, but I'm curious what type of person you guys are. Are you the type that sees signs or sees miracles? You know, that's the kind of question that needs to be asked in the chat, because we did go through that moment in the movie, but if we backtrack a little bit, what do you guys think? I think I'm a sort of glass half empty kind of a person, so I would probably bring up, so I would be more of a Meryl, because I've never been religious. I would just think that the things that are happening, and I would assume things would be fine, maybe, because that's kind of what I'm like in life personally.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm not like. I definitely don't see connections. I don't see things as causal. I'm not even a glass half empty guy. If you're filling it, it's half full. If you're drinking it, it's half empty.
Okay.
It's just whatever is happening, right?
Now, Steve, as a natty one roller, chronic bad luck man.
Yeah, I don't believe in luck, but if there is such a thing in luck, I got real bad luck.
But do you fear that, or are you on the
I don't
side
fear it. I don't fear really anything, to be honest. I don't want to die, but I'm not scared of dying, kind of thing, you know. Even when that man pulled that big rusty knife on me, I was like, "Do I die?" I'm like, "Not today."
No,
And then
not
I
today.
punched him in the face and ran away.
Not today,
See ya.
Satan. So I think we're all miracle men. I think we're all on the side of.
No,
we're not
I
gonna
don't
let
believe in miracles.
No, but the metaphor is the miracle versus the
I
fear.
guess.
I gotta
I
be one or
mean,
the other.
I'm not. I mean, I'd
doesn't-
probably.
I'm more of
believe
a
in fear.
dying synapse firing than,
Yeah, me
than
too.
anything.
I'm one of those people that believes that the afterlife is your brain going bananas
Okay.
before you die, and you experience like a heaven or a hell is based on your own life experience.
that's like
up to that moment. If you have
belief-
nightmares every night, or if you have great dreams every night,
Yeah,
that's where you're gonna be.
belief wise, that's where I'm at too.
Yeah,
So I guess we're all both.
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, this movie is very black and white in its themes. So
Yeah,
it's
so it's
kinda-
tricky to kind of.
Is that good enough for you, Dirac?
I hope you're satisfied with that answer or those answers.
But yeah, the basement was definitely scary. The basement was all very, very tense, and especially the light off part is super freaky.
Yeah, I'm not like mega afraid of the dark, but if it's an unfamiliar place and you are definitely not alone, that's a different story.
Yeah. When you're in your basement for the first time and an alien's trying to get in.
Yeah, and all you need to do is find that damn coal shaft that you
Yeah,
think is down there.
Your stupid brother who works at the gas station breaks the light bulb with a pickaxe.
Well, that's just it. They think that, so when they're kind of chased down there after they realize the attic's open, and there's like a banging at the door, and they use that axe to like prop the door closed.
Yeah.
And basically they sort of figure out that the aliens aren't trying to push through the door, they're trying to distract them. That's when Graham, as we've talked about a few times now, realizes that they used to dump coal into this basement. The house is probably 100 years old. It was coal storage. And they're like, there's got to be a way for that to get in here. So they realize that there's this chute, and they go over to it. They find it. They realize there's cold air coming through. There's this one of the spookiest moments of the movie is where Morgan is just standing there like, why are you guys looking at me like that?
And the
Yeah,
hand.
what?
And the hand is like,
Well, it's because it's camouflaged.
It's camouflaged
right?
at first, maybe Jason, maybe you didn't even notice.
I didn't even
that.
recognize. I just saw the hand. Like,
because,
move.
I'm sure Steve and I watching it, you look for the hand because you know it's there.
I know, but like for some reason, I remembered the hand coming through the grate and grabbing him.
The
I
hand is
completely
That's what I
forgot
saw.
that
It's
it
like
was-
the hand.
That's what I literally witnessed happening. So
Yeah, but if you watch that scene again, and you'll see the hand is.
it's just there. Yeah,
It's just there, like. Just,
and it's a
I
practical.
don't know. The
effect,
alien's
effect,
just
right?
hanging dong out this grate, not doing
that's
anything.
actually its dick.
Yeah. And then he just what?
Well, yeah, you've seen Scary Movie. That's where they pee out of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
He gets the asthma attack.
Yeah.
And Morgan, he survives it for now because Graham gets him, and they do kind of like a
embraces
breathing
him, does that,
exercise.
talks him down.
It's really tense. And this is after Bo, earlier in the movie, has been like, I don't want you to die. So I was like, oh, this kid's fucking dead.
Yeah. And she says the least helpful thing ever, which is like, is this where she says, I dreamed this? Or what?
Yeah.
I dreamed this.
I dreamed it.
It's like, oh no.
She's like a
Your
spooky
dreams
Ralph
are not
Wiggum.
cheery.
Yeah, it's a recurring dream I've had.
Yeah.
This exact scenario.
Yeah.
So now we do get the actual flashback to the final moments. She's pinned to the tree with Colleen. She's pinned to the tree. The sheriff kind of explains it in the previous scene. Now it's Graham walking over and actually like witnessing it. Everything that's been explained sort of just like plays out now, and she dies. They have a very sweet final moment, but it is very much taken away from her. Now, I don't think there's any science that could have saved her. I don't think that there's a situation where she's ever okay. I think that that's the horror of this moment, is that he's going to have a final moment with his wife, and there's nothing anybody can do about it.
And it's almost not, it seems like a blessing.
Yeah.
But it's also like, it seems almost like it'd be easier if he showed up and she had been killed.
Exactly.
Than,
like it might have
than
been
him having to actually make the walk to say goodbye. Because he doesn't seem to get any closure.
No.
I mean, obviously until the end, but it's like, he doesn't gain anything from that interaction, right? It's not like he doesn't cherish those final moments. It seems like he resents them.
Well, you've got to like think about somebody that you hold near and dear.
Oh, for sure, absolutely.
Dying in that way, and you have to like be front row for it.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
crazy. Like I can
There's like part of me that doesn't even know if I'd be able to
like
do
walk
it.
over. and deal with
Yeah.
that.
No, exactly.
I think about this moment in this movie quite a bit, actually, in terms of like death sequences, and like, you know, there's a million movies where people are confronted with death unexpectedly, but this is like a moment it's so strange and kind of unique, where they specifically call him there.
Yeah, they like schedule her death.
Yeah, exactly. Like they could basically end it before he got there, but they want to give him the option to do it, and it ultimately is really nice. But at the end, it's like I don't know if I would have it in me to be able to go up to a person who's been bisected by a car and talk to them in their dying moments and have to get information to relay to other people.
Well, and you talk about scenes you remember that stick with you. When she dies and she kind of like sinks into the hood of the car. That is like before I watched it again, I probably haven't seen it in 10 years, maybe longer. Mm-hmm. I wanted to think what were the most impactful things that I still remember without needing to watch the movie to refresh my memory. One is obviously the Mexican birthday party walk.
Yeah.
The whole final showdown, the fingers, and then the sinking was another one that I remember that I didn't have to be reminded, because a lot of times throughout the movie I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that kind of. But this, like that sinking, she really sold it. It was like really.
Sure, yeah.
I was wondering about that, because there are movies where I'm like, I don't know if I can watch that again because I got through it once.
Yeah.
And the whole, every time it flashed back, I was like, oh, preemptively, because it's so brutal.
And every time it flashed back, I kept waiting, because I couldn't remember how many times they did it, because they did it 1,000 times, where I'm thinking about, like, is the sink coming? Right. Like,
yeah.
That slouch.
I actually really liked it this time, because I couldn't fully remember the sequence of events and how much information they give you at a time. So I was kind of looking forward to each moment to see how much they give you.
To peel it, yeah.
Because in my memory, that only happens once and you have the whole sequence. And I had forgotten that they break it up and give you tiny snippets of it to allow you, almost as like an audience, as a viewer, to prepare yourself for this thing that you keep hearing about.
Yeah.
And what you're presented with is like far more horrifying in your imagination than you're prepared for, because they don't really say how she died and that she was still alive until the last time you see that sequence.
Yeah.
And it's super impactful. Yeah. And I mean, she was impacted so much by that car.
Yeah, it's right in
that tree.
Yeah, that Ford was very impactful.
Impacted directly into two paths.
Yeah.
So back
after a long day and a late dinner.
yeah,
Yeah,
after
and a whole lot of NyQuil.
drinking NyQuil and snorting ketamine all day.
Yeah.
Just crash right into a woman.
Hanging
who
out
was-
with like 3 cats and a pig and a horse.
yeah. I think I'm okay to drive.
I'll be fine. It's not like some
Yeah,
woman's
you
gonna
are.
be walking
Right.
on
Isn't that right, talking pig? You
You're
got
right.
it, M. Night
You got it
Shyamalan. He
So-
tosses him the keys. Yeah.
You want to keep riffing? Because that's good shit.
Drive away.
Yeah. All of them are waving from the window as he drives away.
Bye. Don't crash into a woman and bisect her. So
Drive safe.
The steering wheel turns into a pillow and he just lays his head down.
Oh,
That's
mercy.
it's very
Oh,
Homer
my.
Simpson when he falls asleep at the wheel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's just sleeping on a bed and then he's
Yeah,
crashed
yeah,
into a
yeah.
tree. Yeah. I think M. Night Shyamalan was like rewatching The Simpsons when he put this
Yeah,
movie together
probably,
because
yeah.
there's a lot
Yeah,
of
for
like
sure. Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff.
We've seen aliens in Ogdenville, North Haverbrook.
By gum, did it put them on the map?
Oh man. So they have the radio on now after they sleep the night and everybody's all frazzled. They put the radio on and the radio person says that the aliens are leaving.
This is real War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
This is like this is almost like litigious War of the Worlds.
Because they do say that somebody in the Middle East, I think they say,
They
figured out
said a couple places. One of the places
figured
is
out
Jerusalem.
some way.
Yeah.
Yeah, they figured out a way. They don't say it on
They
the
say
radio.
a primitive way.
A
so it's
primitive
like,
way,
Yeah,
yeah.
they. I think that's to imply like we didn't use advanced technology to take these things out.
Yeah.
Just like a bunch of people in the streets were able to.
Because the War of the
World.
World thing is they just get the cold. They get a common.
They
cold,
just get
right?
bacteria. Yeah.
they just
They
don't
come out.
can't deal with our atmosphere.
But the thing about World of the
World of the War,
doing it again.
World of Warcraft.
World of Warcraft.
We're on Twitch.
Is that the aliens were here all along and they were prepared for an ancient Earth or whatever, right?
Yeah.
They didn't travel here and get infected, being like, "Oh, geez, we didn't expect you guys to all have the flu. What the fuck?"
Yeah.
So, to me, I'm like, they didn't know they were going to a planet that's like 95% water.
The thing is, then this is a very common criticism of the movie.
Yeah.
What I'll say is, I think humans put themselves in way more hostile situations on
Than
Earth.
just going to water. Yeah.
Just like, you know what I mean? It's or like
Let's go
like,
explore the
nobody
wreckage
ever-
of the
there's never,
Titanic.
like a coal mine collapse, and people are like, "What are those stupid people doing underground?" You know what I
That's
mean?
true,
It's
yeah.
like you can't even breathe under there with all that coal and carbon dioxide. But
Why
it's
would
like-
you do that? Yeah.
Yeah, but
That's
it's like
true.
they found a planet.
But they're naked. That's the thing. It's like they don't have any
this
suits
movie
or
is
anything.
really a very long critique on the dangers of nudism. Really,
It's true,
like
yeah.
if they had any kind of even an umbrella.
Yeah, if they had
But,
any kind of humility,
I don't know
they
if you
would
guys
have had a
watched
raincoats.
Chernobyl, but they immediately the people who were trying to like fix the issue are like just like some miners, and they
The
they,
sexy naked.
they
dudes.
start
Yeah.
digging. They start just digging underneath to get to like where the main meltdown is to like relieve it, and then they just get naked. Because it's so hot, because it's a molten core that's just
it's
like
radioactive?
it's just falling through the earth.
Yeah.
Humans are dumb, and I'm surprised that
That's
humans
true.
got out of this situation relatively unscathed. I think M. Night Shyamalan is a miracle person because he thinks that we wouldn't just fumble this immediately.
Yeah. But
I
that's
think
the thing.
he also is genuinely religious. I'm pretty sure.
The aliens, like, people are like, oh, like they get killed by water, but they come to a planet that's all water. But they breathe oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
They don't have suits on at all.
They don't
just
have suits,
nude,
so
I
they're
guess.
like, you know what I mean? If we had to leave Earth and we found a planet that had acid rain, but a completely breathable atmosphere, and we would be like, okay, you know what? That's good enough. Like we can stop here. You wouldn't
figure out-
necessarily.
But yeah, I think the only issue
cosmic
that I
scheme of
have
things.
is that they have absolutely no means of protecting themselves against
of course.
it.
Yeah, like what if it
Um,
rained? What if it was like torrential downpour during this event?
Yeah,
What
well,
if it
and then
started
yeah,
raining?
and that's another thing that I wanted to circle back on afterward. But
Yeah,
Kinda
I was thinking like, what if it's fresh water or like it's something we do to treat our water? Because I thought that
Yeah.
was
Yeah,
what
the
was
thing
going on
with
with
or
the
if it's
Bo.
boat.
like the
Holy
something in the
water.
well water or something. Yeah,
Holy water is a good
some
point.
demons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bo's like afraid of the water at their farm specifically through the whole movie,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he's a reverend. Like maybe the land is purified by
Yeah,
religion.
but I don't think that we could drive away a planet-wide invasion
That's
with
kind of-
holy water. That's kind of like
Yeah.
you got to get guys really blessing on a mass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
get a bunch of
you got a
priests,
guy.
like-
You got a guy on one of those
He's-
those helicopters that put out forest fires. And they
Yeah,
got
and then,
they
like,
got
a
a Catholic
bunch of-
priest up there like blessing it as they go
A
by.
bunch of priests driving fire trucks like through the streets, just hosing down demons.
yeah, sanctifying the fire hydrants as they hook them up and stuff.
See, because I wasn't watching this movie really through the lens of the religion factor until the movie was done, and I was like,
Yeah.
wait a second. And now talking about it, I'm like, oh, this is definitely like a metaphor for fucking demons.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
Durak Attack in the chat says, "Who would have thought your super soaker from when you were a kid could help defend from an alien
Absolutely.
invasion?"
Yeah.
Essentially, Merrill can't take that Graham, his older brother, is losing faith. He basically says to him, "I never want to see your eyes go like dead like that again." Like, if we're in the worst situations in life that we're in, you're my older brother. Like, who am I supposed to look to? And you're a former
and he's
reverend.
probably been the more stable. Like, he is a reverend. He owns a farm as well. I don't know if he, like, the reverend, like, is that not a job? Like, he has a farm and he's a
Yeah.
reverend.
Yeah.
but he has a cornfield ready to go.
I know that there are some cutscenes where, they him and his wife in the kitchen dancing around and stuff. So I think it's like a family farm kind of thing where it's like passed down. But
he's definitely the stable one. And then
Yeah.
you know,
they
what I mean,
grow
Meryl's
corn,
like-
so they're definitely selling corn to people.
yeah, and
right?
Meryl's like working at the gas station, jerking off the swimsuits.
What's the side hustle? Is the reverend the side hustle, or the fully functional
that's what I
corn
mean, right?
farm? That's side
Is
hustle.
he like Father Corn?
Well, it's
or-
possible that his wife was like a farmer, right? And
Yeah,
then
okay.
he was
Yeah,
the.
women can be farmers, Jason.
I don't know.
Yeah.
about that.
Haven't you ever played Stardew Valley?
yeah.
Yeah, that's
They
right.
got
You
those
sick fuck.
Scandinavian women that'll just,
Jump
that'll
clean
stand
over
2
your
feet
corn
taller than the
stalk.
corn. Yeah.
I wish a Scandinavian woman would jump on my roof. Wait,
Whoa.
my wife is sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway.
Presenting me with divorce papers?
Yeah. Oh, what's that? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I gotta go. So Morgan is now weak from the attack. He needs his meds, and they have to be sure though to leave the basement because there could be an alien there. Probably isn't though. Probably no aliens. They head upstairs.
Well, they said the aliens have left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they
They
like
did also say
knock
that they
on the
left
They
door.
behind
left some of the wounded,
wounded.
Yeah, but they.
which will beg into question later.
What was the
Yeah.
test to see if they're? Oh yeah, they just turn on the baby monitor and they're like, good enough.
And everything's fine.
Yeah.
Well, and he's like, good enough for you? Yeah. I mean, the
Yeah.
kid's going to die, right? So,
They need
True.
the medicine.
yeah, they need the medicine.
EpiPen or whatever.
So they head upstairs. The place is trashed. This is when you can hear the TV say that like somewhere in the Middle East they found a primitive way to destroy the aliens. But
The cutest part of the movie happens.
what's the cutest part of the movie?
Bo dancing.
Right.
Oh right, yeah.
The people on TV, they're dancing like this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, what are they doing? Like this. You know
Like
what I mean?
this.
She's like really giving it.
But the camera pans over and we just full on see an alien and it grabs.
Well, you see it in the
You
TV
see it
first.
in
No,
the
you
TV.
see a
It was the
reflection. You only see the alien fully once, and that's the only time that it looks bad. It looks
when he's
good for this
holding
entire
when he's
sequence.
holding Morgan, and Morgan's like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they do have some practical effects going on in here as well. But the only time you see it is when the water dribbles on it, and it looks absolutely horrendous. Every other time, it's in like really
Did you
dark
watch some
and
kind of
silhouette.
behind the scenes thing, or
Me?
no?
Oh shit! Yeah, you got me. I don't understand sarcasm.
Yeah.
So, well, basically, what I was gonna say is that they purposefully like use the reflections and warp the they'll shoot it through the glasses of water and stuff, and it hides the seams really well, and most of the sequence stands up, but as soon as they show it, that's when you start to then overly criticize the other shots of the alien.
Yeah.
because you've now seen this like really crappy thing that just doesn't look good.
But then they have the alien holding him, and it's the alien that he cut the
Well,
fingers
that's
off.
just it. Yeah. The big reveal at this moment is that it's the same alien from the pantry, which I thought was a really cool little thing because that alien in the
for
pantry
revenge.
might have been doing the thing that the aliens were doing when they were attacking the house, where it was playing possum
Yeah.
to just mess with Graham.
Yeah, I have a couple questions about that alien specifically. Was he considered injured? Like his missing fingers? Like were they that strict? Because they said they left some that were hurt behind. Did he miss his flight? Because
Yeah.
he like didn't get out of the pantry? And is he specifically targeting Graham? Like did he come and grab Morgan? Because it seems like when he's holding Morgan and you see the fingers, like is the alien like, yeah, fuck you, yeah, you know what I mean? Like I got your kid.
I got your kid now.
You know what I mean?
My assumption was that the signs, the crop circles, are sort of like coordinates for the ships to hover above, right? So they stick close to those. So if he got out and he ended up scouting a bunch of the area and got trapped in the pantry, it's very likely that he did miss his flight if all of the aliens had been ordered to leave.
I'm glad you brought that up too, because Morgan sort of earlier in the movie, there's a little bit of a kind of a subplot where he's talking about, like, I think Meryl is in on it, and they're wondering why they are where they are and what they're doing, and they sort of figure out that the aliens are creating a map with their ships of Earth.
Yeah,
they're sort of mapping out where different big places are, and since they're right outside of the greatest city in the world, Philadelphia,
the true seat of power in the United States of America.
Exactly, the home of the cracked Liberty Bell. There's an alien ship here, and it's probably one of many in a net of ships. Why can't I think of the word? In a network of ships.
Yeah.
But
the news doesn't even know about that one because he already clearly stated he will not tell the news. They will. Those aliens,
or
the aliens above his house, will not be famous.
No. Even though it's the most famous alien, because we're watching a whole movie about it.
yeah.
But that's that's part of it, Steve. So thanks for bringing that up. There's some things that we kind of gloss over in this movie because there's so much. It's so content dense.
It's dense.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's also really tight and simple too, right? There's a lot to talk about, but it's a really basic and just good. It's efficient, I guess is what I would call it. It knows what it's doing and it does its job.
It is efficient for 99% of the movie. And then there's 1% where they show the fingers missing from the alien and then they cut back to him cutting off the fingers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you think that I'm fucking stupid?
So in defense of the movie, they don't show him cutting the fingers off again. They just show him grabbing the knife again and a knife noise going.
But
I agree.
Can I not? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
his movies are supposed to be cryptic and like he presents them as like the thinking man's like crazy psychological twist, and it's
I think at this point in his career, he was still getting those studio notes. People aren't going to remember
that.
Yeah,
very
people
are these people to watch.
Someone went to get popcorn while he cut the fingers off.
It's like. How would anybody forget that happened? It's the craziest part in the movie.
What you're saying is layered too, because we do get a final cutback to a shot of Colleen saying, "Swing away, moral."
Like if he just kind of looked at Meryl and said, "Swing away, Meryl," and he saw the bat, would I have been like, why did he say that?
Why the fuck? I don't understand. It's like some sort of synapses are firing in my head, but I can't understand what's happening in the movie.
Anyway, this is when Meryl goes full fucking Ness from Earthbound and just starts wailing.
Anytime we watch a movie,
the alien doesn't put up much of a fight.
No, the CGI is so much worse than I was expecting. Is a line that I wrote. Some water falls on him during this moment, and then. It was the water after all. M. Night Shyamalan twist-a-rooney.
Yeah.
And then the score crescendos during this moment, and it's so good. Like, it's just so triumphant. And this is where they defeat the alien. The alien gets blasted back into the Stone Age. And they take Morgan out onto the grass. Because as the alien was holding him, he's like, they talk about the poison throughout this whole movie too. There's this poison gas that these aliens secrete that's what's killing people.
And then they take them or whatever.
And then they take them. but it also kills you. And also they brutalize people
I mean,
too.
maybe it doesn't kill you. Maybe it just knocks you out and they take you and you're presumed dead. But
Yeah, this movie falls apart when you talk about it too much. I've learned through talking about it for 3 hours.
It's not about the alien invasion. That's what we've learned.
Yeah.
Talking about this movie. It has nothing to do with the aliens. It's just a set piece for us to
yeah,
to
experience.
have a podcast.
Yeah,
This
to experience
movie
Mel
was-
Gibson's
and then
faith,
Shyamalan
loss
was
of
like,
faith.
I make movies so people in 20 years can do podcasts about
Yeah.
them, okay?
They're gonna have these things called podcasts. But yeah, so then he survives because of the asthma attack.
Yeah.
And in case you forgot the finger, for the finger forgetters, he says, "This is why you have asthma,"
Yeah.
right? and then it's like, that's why you left the water.
Yeah.
It's really,
and
yeah,
then
it's
the
too
mother
much.
dies so she can say "swing away."
It's a
Can
little
I-
too much of Irving the Explainer, just kind of like shoving everything that we've just watched the movie. We know, like, if this was a TV show and we had to remember back 6 episodes, okay,
Yeah,
I get it,
for
but
sure.
you don't need
It's
to.
like, yeah,
But
it's
the movie's
like
only an
previously
hour
on
and 40
Signs.
minutes.
Yeah. Can I talk about maybe this? You know what I mean? Tell me if this is going a little crazy. There's one character in this movie who deserves some criticism, and that is God.
Yeah, what an
So
asshole.
God gives Morgan asthma, a horrible disease. I had terrible asthma. I related to Morgan a lot as a kid with his asthma attacks because I was hospitalized for asthma and stuff.
Right.
So he gave him asthma. It's like make Bo a hypochondriac, pin the reverend's wife to a tree and have her fall in half so
Yeah.
that she can say, swing a baseball
Swing
bat.
away, yeah.
And he could have simplified that all just by like making it
Make Meryl
rain
a horrible
in one of those
pervert.
4 days.
Yeah, he
You know
could
what I
have just
mean?
made it rain.
It
Yeah.
made it rain once instead of
Yeah.
having to kill a woman and like, you know what I mean? Really do a number on.
Listen,
the
God
kids
only
and
has
give them
powers
diseases.
over horrible lung diseases, mental illnesses, and killing women.
Yeah, and when people fall asleep.
And chronic masturbation.
Yeah, and swimsuit competition.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
it's like and then that gives him his faith back. But I'd be like, yo,
Yeah, what the hell, man?
Yeah,
Can't you
like-
control the rain? Nope.
yeah,
That's
no,
one thing I
whoa,
can't
whoa,
control.
whoa.
Yeah.
It's a little Chekhov's gun, don't you think? Chekhov's bat
God is
actually on the
Chekhov's
wall.
gun.
Chekhov's bisected wife.
Oh my god, that's incredible.
Yeah.
The last note that I have before we move on to the last 2 segments is like an actual happy ending because it kind of just like everything's resolved. Those aliens
Yeah.
are coming back, right? Like
The kids are loud, yeah, but not for 100 or
not for
1,000
100 or
years.
1,000
so-
years.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's the movie Signs. Before we move on to our final thoughts, we're gonna introduce Game Time.
It's time to play Guess the MPAA.
So just real quick, the MPAA certificate is a number that appears at the end of a movie. They're based on rating the movie from general rated to NC-17. What I've devised is the fact that there is a 5-digit number on every movie is that in 2 guesses, could our guest and Steve guess what the MPAA certificate rating is? I've given you a hint. It's 5 digits. This week on the show, I'm going to do something very special. I'm going to give you the final 2 numbers of that
Final 2.
5-digit. Why, is that too many numbers?
That'll make it easier.
I'm going to give you
do
the
the first 2.
final... You want the first 3?
First 2, or even just the first 1.
I'm going to give you the first number.
Give us the first and the last.
Oh. I'm going to give you the first and last number of the MPAA certificate number. The first digit is 3. The final digit is 5. You have 2 guesses. Alex, what is your first guess?
I don't know what the number represents, so it's a real guess. 3, 6, 5, 4. Last number that you gave me already that I forgot. 5.
Steve, it is higher than that number.
3, 8, 4, 0, 5.
Alex, it is higher than that number.
3, 9, 7, 3.65.
Steve, it is lower than that number.
39285.
5.
Oh no! The button's broken.
We only had a 1% chance of getting that.
MPAA, everyone. The MPAA. Wow.
Oh, why is
You're
it
gonna have to
playing
stop.
both at the same time? I thought it was
To
going to
pause the other one.
It would close like 35 fucking VLC players. The number was 39105. You guys played. You guys did an excellent game. You guys did a. Wow, pocket audience.
Jeez, this audience is so rude.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Oh god, Michael Myers is here. Damn it, he must have just ate a dog,
Yeah.
Yeah, he ate the dog.
giving him indigestion.
Thank you for humoring me. That game, I hope can evolve, but that's the best version
Yeah.
of it we've seen so far.
Yeah, there you go. The guess 3 numbers game.
It's so stupid. It's all
I
because
think that if we do the first two, you give us the first two, and then it'll be easier for us to figure
Yeah.
it out.
Okay. Well, that's a really good. That's a really good. It's a really good idea.
Okay, thanks.
It's time for our final thoughts.
As I said at the top of the show, I do make it a tradition. I have made it a tradition to let the guest go first. I will allow you to know that the final thoughts portion is basically just your in summation final thoughts. If you want to give it some sort of rating, whether it be out of 5 out of 10 out of 25 out of a million, or do some sort of made up fun rating,
Okay.
the floor is yours.
Okay. Love the movie. It's scarier than I remember. Before I watched it, I asked my wife, I'm like, hey, you want to watch Signs with me before the show? And she said, no, it's nighttime and it's too scary. And I thought, it's not that scary. It's
My wife said
suspenseful.
that too.
And then I watched it, and then I was like, okay, there are definite parts here that are too scary to watch at night. But all in all, solid flick, solid Shyamalan showing, and I would say I give it 4 severed alien fingers out of 5.
All right, thanks, Alex. Steve, why don't you give us your final thoughts for the film Signs, starring Joaquin Phoenix and Mel Gibson, by the director M. Night Shyamalan?
I think that this is kind of like peak Shyamalan. He does everything that we know and love from his best movies. I know this movie has a lot of criticisms that are involved with it. I don't know if those are necessarily all unwarranted, but I really enjoy this movie. It was a pretty large part of my introduction to starting to understand and appreciate film on like a different level. I wasn't just watching moving pictures anymore. I was actually sort of beginning to analyze and understand what theme was and what it meant to, have good cinematography versus kind of lazy and boring cinematography, and what kind of impact that can have on a film. So this movie is pretty important to me in terms of my evolution as a film watcher. And I think that it's probably pretty important to M. Night Shyamalan as part of his filmography and what we understand of him as a director. Jason, when you're laughing and I'm talking, I assume you're laughing at me, right?
No. I just Alex changes.
He's laughing at me.
Yeah, changes background. Like,
Oh, Alex just wanted this guy to be able to check things out.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Steve. I wasn't laughing at you.
Yeah, he was laughing at beautiful women licking his toes.
Damn it, you
Weird
ruined my
fucking
rating.
face.
Oh no.
It's no longer a surprise. I was going to give this movie an alien having his toes licked by beautiful women, but now I'm going to give this movie, it is really good, but there are some areas where the seams are showing with age, especially in the terms of the CGI. So what I'm going to give this movie is a perfectly good woman, but she's bisected by a car. And you can see the seam.
Thank you, Steve. As always, excellent final thought. Okay. My final thought, of course, goes like this. This movie was great. I'm glad I was in a place where I could truly enjoy it. And now I'm watching more movies and appreciating filmmaking a lot more. I think if I had watched this 20 years ago, I wouldn't have appreciated it like I did now. I feel like it's an important film in a lot of ways, and analyzing it's especially important. I think as a throwaway movie you just see, I don't think I would have appreciated it the same way you guys like went back and rewatched it and like it was part of your sort of zeitgeist growing up. I don't think that it would have been like that for me, so I'm glad I waited. It's sort of an M. Night Shyamalan movie with no real twist, but what it does do is reveal small things in a way that feels like a series of mini twists, which I was talking about throughout. Since I already knew the twist, I was able to focus more on the other stuff a lot more. Start to finish, I was captivated. I was legit startled by the early reveals of the aliens, since they were played like a horror reveal. They also don't really show the alien much like they do in like a horror movie, like monster movies told much later. You finally get to see it and you're like, what the fuck? I do really think they should have gone practical or practical CGI mix for the final alien battle. I said it looked like shit in 2023, but you guys have sort of swayed me to realize that it looks fine. Honestly, it looks kind of crappy. It still made me feel that sense of foreboding. And it's good that they used the CGI sparingly throughout the rest of the movie. But the direct shots of the alien did make me groan. Good cast, great score, well-made film. I give this a 4.3 out of 5. And if I was to give it a fun rating, I would say that it's a crop circle on a closed set. That you really want to just walk through and check it out.
Yeah.
Check things out.
So, okay. So that is our episode this week. What the fuck? I'm doing this. So I don't get...
Why? We know we're not doing it.
Yeah. They don't stop. They're having a great fucking time over there. Is that everything?
That one guy sounds COVID.
Whoa. Alex, do you have anything you want to promote or plug?
No, just, as a 35-year-old, slightly overweight, bearded man, I know that my opinions about movies are very unique and important. So I'm just glad to have a platform,
Yeah.
And if one or two people, a week come up to me and say, hey, I saw you on that podcast and you really changed I saw you talk about signs. It really changed me,
Yeah.
If I can get that, then that's all I need.
That's incredible. I'd like to. So Somatic has just come in here, who's I think a new viewer. They've gifted 5 tier 1 subs to our community.
Oh,
so you're welcome to Leon 27, the Mediocre Gamer, Enox, me, and Steve. We have 6 subs now from this stream. Thank you, everybody. That's incredible. This has been we have 10 viewers right now at the end of the show. This has been like by far our best stream I think we've ever done. And it was just so fun. Hi, Keldon. Thank you for coming by. Thank you for everybody who watched tonight. It's really important to me that we're moving upwards and onwards. I'd like to promote this podcast. We have one question that we ask each and every week. And I think, Alex, would you like to ask that question?
Hey, did you see this one?
Oh, Somatic put it in the fucking chat. Is that...
Whoa, Somatic rules!
Somatic rules, brother! Wow. We have 12 views. Like, this is the highest viewers we've ever had. Like, it's
we're doing it, Jason. We're doing it.
Orlix Live just subscribed with Prime too. So thank you for that subscription.
Oh, the subscription is coming from within the podcast.
Oh, I understand.
It's inside the podcast with you right now.
It's a sign.